of Canby, welcome to another rousing Wednesday evening here at City Hall. We have a very full agenda this evening, and we're starting off first with a work session to discuss the housing needs assessment and next steps, I believe, is our topic this evening, and where we're going to be going to implement said housing needs assessment. So anything that you want to say, Eileen, before, or we can just go right to Mr. Hardy and the consultant team? Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I wanted to do some introductions before we get started here, and I have Tim Wood next to me. He's with FCS Group. He's one of our team consultants for the project. FCS does housing and economic forecasts and that's their specialty, and they're helping us with the housing needs analysis and housing production strategy. Also have Todd Chase with FCS Group here tonight, and he's going to be part of the presentation for the beginning of the presentation. And I have Steve Faust with 3J Consulting. He's our lead planner for the comprehensive plan work that we're doing. And Kelly Reed with Department of Land Conservation and Development. She's our regional representative, and we really appreciate her being here tonight with us. Steve and Kelly are just available as resources here tonight to go through our presentation. Just some comments before we kick it off tonight. This is really intended to give an update on a few things dealing with our housing needs analysis. And we're still going through some of the number crunching for housing needs analysis on acreage, which would be the urban growth boundary expansion acreage that's needed. Although I think we're getting much closer to those final numbers. We really appreciate working with DLCD on that. And then the housing production strategy is another thing that's ongoing along with the housing needs analysis, and that's a response to the housing needs strategies for the long term to implement those over 8 years of time to deal with the housing needs that are identified in the housing needs assessment. And with that, I think Todd is going to take it away here.
Yeah, can I share my screen, or do you have the presentation you want?
We have a presentation, Todd, and yeah, we're going to bring that up.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I mean, because it's been about 20 years since the city's really done a thorough analysis of its UGB, urban growth boundary, in terms of its needs for housing and jobs. This effort is taking a lot of diligent work to, dot all our I's and cross our T's in terms of making sure that we're addressing all the state requirements for documenting the need for residential land. Remember, last year we focused on employment land. Now we're talking about primarily residential land in this effort. So you can roll through these first few slides. So here's our topics tonight. We'll give you an update of the buildable land inventory, which is a prescription in terms of documenting land needs, of how you calculate buildable lands that are vacant and part vacant and redevelopable inside the current urban growth boundary that is planned for future residential development or mixed use. The buildable land inventory map was prepared by 3J Consulting. They have a great GIS team there, and they've been documenting projects that are either in the pipeline and building permits have already been issued, or projects that are considered to be still undeveloped or vacant and pending. And then other lands that are either vacant or redevelopable. And that's shown on this map in terms of what's vacant or part vacant or redevelopable. So, there's still a few hundred acres left, and we'll talk about that tonight. Look at our housing needs in terms of population growth forecasts over the next 20 years. The buildable land inventory consists of about 221 acres of buildable residential land. It's primarily in the part vacant category, which basically means there's already one house on the lot, or one structure of high value. So the property owner would therefore need to elect to partition the land, subdivide it, and develop it over time. You can see the variation in terms of lot sizes. We have about 40 acres in less than 2 acre lots. We have about 36 acres in 2 to 5 acre lots, about 4 acres in 5 to 10 acre lots, and then 60 acres in over 10 acre tax lots that hopefully could be aggregated and developed over time for housing as planned. In addition, there's 65 acres in the construction pipeline. And you'll see the majority of this total land inventory is in part vacant. There's about 3.4 acres of redevelopable land where the land value is greater than the current value of the improvements, so we would expect that land to redevelop. And we're counting it because it's zoned for mixed use. So we're hopeful that a lot of that land would result in some housing, whether it's vertical or horizontal mixed use, we don't know, but we are counting that as in our future land inventory. Next slide, please. As we did this project and started, a few years back, we started tracking home values in Canby. We noted that they significantly increased during and up to the pandemic. And then since then, like with the rest of the country, really, they've declined a bit in terms of home values or median home sales prices in Canby. It's gone down to about $562,000. Peaked out at about 582,000 in 2022, and now it's number 562 in 2023, and I believe it's down a little bit more this year, slightly, as interest rates have gone up. So yeah, these home prices have been going up a lot faster than income levels in general, and as a result, housing affordability is becoming more of a challenge for both owners and renters in Canby and all around the region. Next slide, please. As we look at the value of homes in relation to income levels, we consider HUD measures of affordability. HUD has different classifications of affordability based on your comparison to the median family income in the county, which was about $89,000 last year. And so we look at, different professions can afford different types of homes. But I noticed at a 7% current mortgage rate, you need an annual household income of about $140,000 to be able to afford that current median home in Canby today, about $562,000. So that's probably going to be a dual income household. And you can see a lawyer's income at the high end of our spectrum was 128, being able to afford a max mortgage of about $500,000. And then engineer max mortgage about $332,000 at $85,000 per year salary. These are assuming about 30% of their income is allotted to housing costs. Of course, a lot of people pay more than 30% of their income to housing costs, especially when you get down into these lower income professions like teachers and healthcare professionals, retail sales persons, people. Those folks are more likely to be renters, and that's when we find that drives up the demand for rental, which drives up rental costs, and we're finding that's a significant challenge now in Canby. Adequate rental supplies, big deal. Next slide, please. And this slide shows that severely rent-burdened households who pay over 50% of their income on rental housing costs, basically monthly rents. That level in Canby has gone up to about 29% of the households that are renting are paying over 50% of their income on rent. That's up from only 19 or 17% in 2019. So the big increase in the last few years, mostly because we're not keeping up with the housing demand for rentals in Canby. And that's creating quite a bit of pent-up demand, we think, for affordable rental units in Canby and elsewhere. We've done a housing needs forecast that is consistent with the housing or population growth forecasts that have been provided to the city for the urban growth boundary. And we found that the overall need is for about 2,286 housing units over the next 20 years based on the population growth forecast. We do have about 412 units that are in various stages of construction now in the construction pipeline that have received some type of building permit. And so the remaining demand after the pipeline adjustments, about 1,873 units. Based on income levels in the community, we've shown a distribution of demand that is much more oriented towards middle housing than the current supply is, just to increase affordability for housing attainability in the community. You'll see that the future demand for this 1,873 units is now about 30% standard lot subdivisions, and then 32% small lot and cottages, more attainable single-family homes, and then about 19% townhomes, plexes, and manufactured homes, and another 19% for apartments and other types of housing, shared housing and that type of thing in the community. So there's definitely more of a slant towards smaller lot demand and middle housing is what we call it. In terms of actually looking at that demand for land based on that level of housing growth, we're finding that, well, they're going to need about 296 acres of land based on current and actually increasing the current density that we've demonstrated in the city over the past several years by about 3% to take into account some of the recent housing production measures the city's already adopted and some that you plan to adopt. So we're assuming density will rise slightly. And if that does increase, we're finding that we're going to need about 76 additional acres of land in our urban growth area. We basically are looking at this in two different kind of ways. In this scenario A, we're assuming that there's a gross to net ratio of net to gross buildable land needs that takes into account parks and public facilities. And that gross to net ratio in this scenario assumes about 1.25 factor on gross versus net land area requirements for new development. And that's to take into account things like roads and utility right-of-way, as well as other public facilities like parks. This 1.25% is considered to be a safe harbor forecast that the state has allowed through other administrative rules and guidelines. And a lot of cities kind of gravitate to this because it's usually it's not likely to be challenged when you assume this type of ratio. We found using this scenario that we need about 75.6 acres of additional land in our urban growth boundary, and that includes land for housing as well as the related streets and parks. So that was one way to look at this land needs We also looked at it in another way, which is this scenario B, which is intended to remove the parks from the public facility equation and just look at the demand for roads, right-of-way, and utilities on top of the net housing requirements for the development. And to do that, we're departing from the safe harbor forecast, and instead we're using what we consider to be kind of demonstrated experience in the local community over the past 8 years of permitting different types of development, standard lot, subdivisions, townhomes, and apartments. We found only 4 minor partitions and subdivisions with cottages that we're using for this analysis. But, that being said, this gives us a different outcome than what we showed in the safe harbor forecast. This gives us a need for about 74.3 acres of urban growth boundary expansion for residential housing, excluding the parks component. And so we're still reviewing that with DLCD staff, and we're trying to make sure that we have good, accurate assumptions for each of those housing types when we do that work. So our recommendations and discussion for tonight, based on our findings so far, is that the scenario B that results in up to a 74.3 acre urban growth boundary need for additional residential land, excluding parks, would be what we would recommend at this point in time. We found that the city would then need to plan for some low density in terms of standard single lot homes of about 22 additional acres, another 33 acres for smaller lot cottage developments, and about 10.3 acres for townhomes and plexes or basically medium density, and about 9.5 acres for apartments and other types of multifamily structures on top of what you already have inside your urban growth boundary. The city staff has been trying to evaluate the parks need based on this population growth forecast, and they've taken into account your current levels of service requirements for parks, and they've also taken into account land that the city already owns that is underutilized for parks and could be further developed for parks. And they've concluded that we need about another 43.7 acres for future parks in this urban growth boundary expansion area to serve the residential development. And so a total need for about 118 total buildable acres based on this work so far. And I do recognize, as Don mentioned, these numbers are still kind of in flux, but we're trying to kind of hone in on what they should be at this point in the next 30 days.
Thank you, Todd. The next few slides we're going to go through is just a high level for housing needs analysis and housing production strategy and housing efficiency measures, just to bring you all up to date on the elements of each of those and the hearings that are coming up fairly soon on a few of these. The housing needs analysis, as Todd went through, I think our next steps really here are honing down, like Todd said, we're working with Kelly and her team on the actual acreage demand for urban growth boundary expansion area, getting those refined. We're hoping that we have that completed and buttoned up by the end of May. That would allow us to go to the Planning Commission on June 10th for the housing needs analysis and to council on July 17th. That's a rather important adoption document because that sets the stage for urban growth boundary expansion for residential lands. And as Todd mentioned, it also under scenario B, which is our recommendation as staff, we'd like to use that because that would include park acreage. What we didn't really touch on is on the economic opportunity analysis work, we are intending to include in sports complex acreage beyond the park acreage as well. So that's another element, and that was included in the economic opportunity analysis. This all is a lot of stuff to take in, but it's all leading to an urban growth boundary expansion application after the comprehensive plan is adopted for the current city limits and current urban growth boundary, and then there'll be an initiation of the urban growth boundary expansion process. I wanted to talk about the housing production strategy, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more in detail. Those hearings are intended to be summer, fall of this year. Those housing production strategies are strategies intended to address housing needs based on what Todd identified in the community and also what we heard from stakeholders during that process. Then housing efficiency measures, not to be confused with housing production strategies, are efficiency measures that are necessary for us to do the urban growth boundary expansion. Those are elements that are required to show that we're using our land efficiently and not arbitrarily expanding our boundary without looking at other ways to reduce that. And we have hearings intended for those for housing efficiency measures in August 26th for the Planning Commission and October 16th for the City Council. So I'm going to go through these slides, and these are really high level, and we're going to get into a lot more detail when we get to the hearings on these, but wanted to give you a prelude of those. So for housing land efficiency measures, again, the ones that were required that we've chosen to look at for land efficiency measures, which are intended to be adopted this year, are changes to our plan unit development code, creation of cottage cluster developments. You see those in other communities. They're fairly popular right now, and they provide a more affordable single-family home product. And then creation of a mixed-use overlay along 99E. This would really be intended on the south side of 99E. The north side is the downtown area. We're not intending to change any of that, but on the south side, having more latitude for things like horizontal mixed use instead of just vertical mixed use within a building. So housing production strategies, and the ones I've highlighted in yellow are housing efficiency measures, not to be confusing, but they're all strategies, but some of them are being implemented early because they're required as part of the urban growth boundary expansion process. And so these strategies, we're going to touch on fairly high level, but these are intended to be strategies that address the housing needs over an 8-year period, which this housing production strategy would be a document going through Planning Commission and City Council. We'll give a lot more detail on these in terms of, it's a fairly large document, and so tonight is really a work session, but I wanted to go through those so you're aware of where we're going. And some of these we've touched on before in previous work sessions, but we're looking at, like, the first one is develop a process for identifying land to upzone for middle housing. Those could be like looking at our current comprehensive plan where there's intended to be a higher density mix of housing. Special Area J comes to mind. Our current comprehensive plan actually identifies that in it, even though it's from '84. It was fairly visionary in that sense, and looking at things like arterial access, transit, those kinds of things where we do have more middle housing. So having some code language along with, or some criteria rather, that would be addressing middle housing on where locational criteria will be what we'll be coming up with. And some of that will come out of the comprehensive plan process as well. We're intending to have locational criteria that again will be vetted through the Planning Commission and Council. I did touch on cottage clusters. That's again an efficiency measure. And then the PUDs, in terms of implementing a planned unit development ordinance, we're intending to do that. Some of these go beyond that implementation, but actually trying to incentivize PUDs, and some of that may carry beyond our housing efficiency measures, but we're looking at trying to wrap as much as we can up with our housing planned unit development code as a housing efficiency measure. Modification of the system development charges. This is obviously something the council will be interested in, and this is something that we're intending to update the system development charges over the next year. I'm hoping as part of that process, we're going to be able to address some of these. This would be things like, should a 4,000 square foot home have the same system development charges as a 1,000 square foot home? That's the current formula right now. There is no scalability on that. Should there be scalability on apartment apartments where there may be rent that is put at a certain rate, where that is scaled or reduced based on that, and possibility of having covenants run with those lands to provide a means of reducing the cost for the rent of those homes. Infill education, that's another element here, and that's like an ongoing item that we would be including. And again, educating property owners, and the mixed use I've touched on the commercial zone along 99E. Reducing lot sizes, and this again is going to be with, some parameters around it, and where that would be, again, would be part of that discussion. Increasing building heights in some zones, updating our residential codes, and some of that's to be consistent with state standards and current state law, updating design standards that are not prohibitive towards allowing more affordable housing, including more advanced product types that we're seeing in the market, preserving naturally occurring affordable housing, and those would be like mobile home parks along 99E that might be zoned commercial that are non-conforming uses, and making them conforming uses. And then finally, partnerships with Clackamas County, which some of that's already happening right now, and that's looking at our way of helping with the homeless situation and partnerships with those agencies. And those might be things like, how do we provide transitionary help with people that to get folks that, to keep them out of homelessness and to help them with the transitionary pieces of that. We have not targeted anything like, homes or anything for the homeless in this community, but there is partnerships that are happening with Clackamas County, much bigger agency, and so that would be continuing. And then again, just kind of focusing on, we're receiving comments from Kelly's team on DLCD. Our focus is really on trying to address these so that we're solid when we take this forth for a resolution through council. And that's, again, to address the needs based on the housing needs analysis and stakeholder input we received during that process, and making sure it's a solid document as we move forward. And I'm going to touch on a few of the strategies that, again, I kind of touched on these a little bit before, but the upzoning, which should be, again, defining guidelines, and that'll be something we'll talk about during the process when we bring the housing production strategies forward. Things like plan unit developments, if there were reduced SDCs for deed restricted affordable housing, that's going to be really a conversation that probably will be part of our SDC update that we'll be doing. And infill education would be another strategy as well. For middle housing, for ADU, accessory dwelling units in middle housing. Reducing minimum lot sizes to be reflective of the market we're seeing now. Our current code requires the lot size to be 3,000 in our zones, our R15 zone. And currently, we're seeing really more like an 1,800 square foot townhome size is pretty much the market now. It's not 3,000, but being more in line with that. Increasing building heights, but also being sensitive to the needs for fire access, and looking at the, possibly step back of how that is designed, and looking at some design elements there. Updating residential zones to remove prohibitions in our R15 zone for mobile home parks, and removing single-family homes from being allowed in the multifamily R2 zone, which currently they're not allowed, but just being clear about that. Updating our design standards, as I mentioned before, to have, modern-looking buildings, but reducing some of the limiting factors that might be out there to reduce housing prices, and again, preserving naturally affordable housing, which I should touch on, which would be like mobile home parks, and finally, the partnerships with Clackamas County that I mentioned. So with that, this kind of intended to be an overview. I think for tonight, if you have questions, we'd really like to hear that. If you feel like scenario B is where you'd like us to focus, we'd like to hear about that as well. And we do have Kelly available from DLCD if there's questions for her or for the rest of the team.
Councilor Sassy.
Have you looked at infill in town? And I'll give you an example. Where I live and the neighbors next to me, between the two of us, we have almost 3.5 acres. And years ago, when Dinsmore Estate was developed, our property was platted for down the road. Have you looked at that kind of stuff? Bigger properties in town?
Yeah, that's part of the assumptions around the partially vacant land that is going to be included as redevelopment. Is your question regarding maybe development standards, or that would encourage those, incentivize those, or is it more, have we included that as part of our assumptions for what's going to redevelop?
Just for available stuff down the road, yeah.
We have, I think one thing I would like to look at on like reduced parcel size in particular, and this came up very recently, is it is very challenging on some of the historically platted lots in downtown Canby. They do not meet current dimensional standards. And we have weird stuff that happens all the time in planning, and like somebody like merged their property together instead of leaving them separate. Well, then we have to come back and say, well, does it meet the current standard because you merged them? And from all intents and purposes, it would seem logical that we could just apply the old standard, but we really can't. So I think some of that is going to be part of this discussion as well, which is providing exceptions to lot sizes where they've historically been parceled out. And I think the other part, to your point on these other adjustments, and that's part of the housing production strategy, is looking holistically at, are there ways that we can still create this, keeping it Canby, but like also like make it not as prohibitive to, and having some adjustment processes. We don't have an adjustment process in our code right now, which basically is a minor variance process. We allow 10% reduction in setbacks, and we allow sign variances administratively, but everything else is a major variance. It's really hard to get a major variance to meet those criteria. So those are things that we'd be looking at. Yeah.
Yes, Councilor Davis.
Great presentation again, Don.
Thank you.
And great work by the firm, too. Don, so this will tie into the planning sessions that we've had with the communities, right? In other words, we established the amount of land.
Yep.
And then once the amount of land, then that will tie into that planning so that we can identify those areas in the urban growth boundaries that the density or low density would go into. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And a great question. I think this leads directly into that. And that's the next step for Community Summit. A plug here for Community Summit number 4, June 20th, 6 p.m. at Baker Prairie. That will get into a lot more of that discussion. And there's another whole nother layer here, and I won't go into all the details tonight, but that is the next step, which is once we look at housing in particular, we're going to have to look at lands that are exception lands first, and some of those are going to require some explanation. I won't go into that tonight in detail, but those are lands that are in the county currently that are parcelized, that are rural residential and smaller division sizes. We have to look at those first as the first opportunity for housing. Secondly, we have to look at farmland that is less valuable. Unfortunately, most of the land around us is valuable. In fact, almost all of it is the same value. But that would look at parcels that are surrounded by this, completely surrounded by the city, would be obviously another piece of that discussion. So there's another whole layer that's going to be discussed at the community summit that's going to go into that, which is going to then start to lead to where in the city, where might that expansion go. Ultimately, the council will have to make that decision, but we'll have to go through the state criteria for that. The employment lands are a little easier because it's pretty logical to go east.
Right.
But the residential lands are going to be a little more challenging in that sense about where will they go, because we have to dismiss properties that are exception lands. We might be able to do some of that. Some of that may not follow an exact logical pattern, but it's what we've been given from a statewide process that we have to address. Because of their location, it's not really necessarily a logical progression from the current boundary upwards. So, but that's what Steve and his group are going to be focusing on at the next summit.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
And we're going to touch on that same thing. We're going to have a listening session. Not that you want another night meeting, but there's a listening session on June 11th for those folks that live outside of the current urban growth boundary that are in the study area. That'll be discussed as well. So there's a lot of interest from those folks about where this boundary might go as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Councilor Stearns.
A couple questions. So just to kind of make sure I'm kind of following the process, to back up a little bit, we're doing this urban growth boundary expansion, and so we're doing a housing needs analysis, and that's good. Says so much is needed for mid-level houses, so much for, what's PUD stand for? I was just.
It's a plan unit development, so it's basically a master plan residential community.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's what
yeah,
that means,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, sorry, I was.
No, it's all good. I should probably be explaining that.
Maybe a glossary on some of these things for those.
We get lost in our own acronyms.
Yeah, lots of acronyms.
Okay.
And so, so plan unit development, that's going to be like a gated community or something to that effect, or?
Well, it may not be gated. I mean, that's not necessarily what we're pushing for, but I think a community that has in exchange for things like open space, and I'm not talking about necessarily even dedicated parkland, but exchange for open space, and our current PUD ordinance does not give any latitude for that. It just basically says you're going to offer up open space and not get anything in return for it, which is probably the reason we haven't seen very many of these. So it would allow for somebody to take advantage of that land density wise. They would transfer that density for the area that they would be dedicating, and then we'd be looking at product type. I mean, I think the goal really here is there's nothing wrong with having townhomes across the street from traditional single-family homes or smaller lots. We don't have a lot of that in this community, but you see great examples across the metro area that works quite well. So the mix here is the important part of that, I think, is really on a PUD side. It's not just a traditional detached lot. That's not what we're pushing. We want a variety of densities across a plan unit development.
And then when you say cottage, I mean, does that have a specific meaning, or I'm just thinking of a small house, but?
So I mean, it's a word of art, but I think, that's another tool that's separate from the plan unit development. That's cottage cluster, and those would be smaller houses. Let's say, for example, 1,000 or 1,200 square foot home. And it may be more like your traditional homes that you saw back in the 60s and 70s, where they were ranch homes, or they may be two-story. But they're smaller houses on smaller lots with commonalities of a minor PUD, which would be having a trail system or some open space that's shared, some amenities they're more shared in common, and they're becoming extremely popular throughout the metro area. If you're interested, we're having a housing efficiency measure work session with our planning commission on June 24th, and we're going to be going through that in detail at that work session, which will show examples of what those are. I know it's hard to visualize, and maybe that's something that we could bring forward when we get, obviously council will see that, but it's a way of designing houses that have common features with them that might be like shared open space area, and they may be oriented to the open space itself. So instead of being all separated and fenced off, they're actually sharing those areas, and they look really nice in the metro area.
Okay, yeah, so, I'm envisioning sort of a condo type arrangement.
Exactly, yeah.
Where you own the house but not the land. But the other question I have, okay, so let's fast forward, we asked for, what is it, 72 or 76 acres, and say we get it. After we've got those and the urban growth boundaries expanded, are we held to the classifications that we create now, or can that be changed after the fact? I'm just curious how much are we maybe paying ourselves in a corner based on what we're doing now versus, say, things change later on?
I think in terms of what the housing mix is, we're going to, my understanding is we're going to need to be fulfilling those amounts. Now, what's interesting is that could be fulfilled also within some of the current urban growth boundary through upzoning. This gets fairly complicated here. So if we do upzoning of land that's zoned R1, and that becomes R15 and R2, that's a whole nother discussion, and that will be part of our comprehensive plan update process. So I think it actually, as a whole, we're going to still see, roughly 30% of the houses be traditional houses that you see that are detached. The rest of them will be a different mix. You'll see a variety of, variety of townhomes, and you'll see maybe cottage cluster, and there's even a smaller section of apartments which are badly needed. But there's also some desire in this community by some developers to fulfill some of those things as part of, like, even within the current urban growth boundary, like in Special Area J, we've had some interest with apartment developers that want to do apartments in those areas. That area by itself may fulfill the apartment need that we're showing here.
Okay. No, the reason why, because I'm looking at some of these housing affordability measures and things, and I'm maybe reading too much into it, but I don't think that your income figures are realistic on some of these, so maybe national averages or something rather than local, because I make my business to see everybody's income, and it'd be very rare to find a lawyer that only makes 128 or an engineer that only makes 85. I think those are maybe either national average or old data, and retail 33,000 a year is only $16 an hour, which is in this area is fairly low unless you're starting out or in fast food. But anyway, I don't know. And the only reason why I care is that if we are right now locking ourselves in to things, I want to make sure that we have proper data. I don't know, obviously I don't know a whole lot about this. By looking at some of this, I do know a little bit about income figures, and so.
And I'll defer to FCS on those figures that were used. I don't think we are intentionally trying to be conservative, but rather pick a midpoint of that. I'm not sure if that's the low end, or it's probably not the high end. I don't disagree with you on that, but even if those wages were higher, though, we still have a problem with housing, I think is the message, because most people can't afford a house right now.
Yeah, well, I know the challenges that are out there, but anyway, I just, if we're not locking ourselves in completely, then I'm not as worried about the numbers being skewed. But if we're basically going to go back, fast forward 5 years from now, and then say our hands are tied because of decisions we made now, then I'd be a little bit more concerned about
it. Question regarding the housing production strategies. Have we started putting together, I guess, action steps within those strategies, or some of the details on what do those strategies look like? How do we actually make those executable?
You'll see it in this document, which is draft, but they're guidelines, and I think we're going to give more definition, obviously, when we start to get into the hearing process of that. And they are fairly broad, they're not real prescriptive at this point, and I don't believe, and Kelly can weigh in on this, I don't think some of these are intentionally broad, and I think they're somewhat good faith efforts towards those without having tons of prescriptive elements in them. And I'm not sure, Kelly, if you'd like to talk about that at all, but this is your area of expertise.
Thanks, Don. Apologize if there's background noise. Yeah, I think what you said is accurate, and some just to be fully transparent, DLCD has been reviewing housing production strategies for less than a year. So I think we have 11 or so that we've received and reviewed so far throughout the state. So this is very new. And so I can kind of speak to those examples of housing production strategies that have already been reviewed and approved, but there are some strategies that are very specific within those and some that are fairly broad. For example, doing a code audit to find barriers in the development code, like certain design standards that might add unnecessary expense to housing construction, and kind of removing or reducing those barriers. So that's super broad and vague, right? But that's what some cities have decided to do as one of their handful of housing production strategies.
Okay. My other question was around ADUs. I know that we've got standards around those and whatnot, and I think we probably looked at that and added some flexibility 6 years ago, maybe 8. Not a lot of takers. here in Canby.
And that may, I mean, it's kind of cumulative what we're trying to address. I think there could be some more tweaks to the ADU piece that would make it a little more friendly, personally, but I also feel like that's not necessarily going to solve the situation. I mean, and at the
There is
same.
no one silver bullet that's going to.
Yeah, well, and part of it is even like House Bill 2001, the duplex thing, we thought there'd be a wave of these. Everybody thought everybody have a duplex on their property. Well, that's not happened hardly in any jurisdiction. So it's more complicated, I think, on that. I think back to Councilor Sassy's point about infill. I mean, I think there might be some ways to kind of look at that a little bit more in detail and trying to tweak those standards that may result in as much benefit as the ADU.
Yeah, no, I know I know it became a bit cost prohibitive when we're hitting an ADU with full SDC charges to make that happen. And so just an interesting piece when we're looking at more smaller lots. That's going to get harder even just in that restriction to be able to do ADUs in that regards, again, as a item on the strategy list. Is there still conversation? Are we looking at in adding residential zone layers so that to move away, because right now we just have the 3. Is there discussion on looking at what, is that even needed right now for Canby to even be considering?
I think it's working, but I think the broader question, Councilor Stearns kind of hit on this to some degree, is when we do our urban growth boundary expansion, we may end up wanting to have another zone or a different residential zone. We have not made that determination yet. That'd be a comprehensive plan designation first before it was done, because it'd have to be brought in through annexation. That may be something that is needed. I think I think there's tweaks to our zones that are important to make, like allowing townhomes in the single-family residential zone, which is not allowed now. I don't know if we're going to get a ton of takers, but that would be important. Reducing the size of the townhome lot to 50 to 1,800 square feet. Those things are important. I think we will get more takers on that as well.
Well, I know, again, just different building strategies and whatnot, and a lot of one product I've seen that seems to be popular is it's a duplex, but they're attached at the garages, and kind of that more, I don't want to say the Villebois style there in Wilsonville, but it's, so it's not necessarily a shared wall, and it's the garages. I will say that there's a product in Beaverton that I am not a huge fan of, and that is the detached townhomes or row homes that are springing up all over the west side of Beaverton. That does not scream Canby to me, and being able to keep, and I know we got to change, we got to adjust, and growth is going to happen, and we've got to make sure that we can account for it. But some of that product that's out there would add further pain and insult to what we're already facing here, to be honest. So
so noted. And I think the building of community, the efficiency measures we're looking at, cottage cluster and the PUD tweaks, which are master plan communities. If that to me means that those processes are fairly well defined, and I think people know what you're getting going into those. I think those communities work better when you plan holistically versus having a neighborhood build up and then something happens across the street. I'm not suggesting that is the most important criteria, but I think in terms of building this flexibility in our code where somebody goes through a more planning process holistically is a better outcome. I would agree with you on that. And I think within that, you can see a variety of housing types. We were just going through some of that with another consultant that's on our team as well this afternoon, that they look quite well. And you had row houses across from single family, and they were done well. I think some of this is about how it's planned out, and some of it's on a standard level as well.
my last question or comment, I guess, too, is we're talking here strategies in housing development, et cetera. And I know part of our comp plan too is the next, or one of the other big pieces of this puzzle is the transportation system plan.
Yeah.
Because as we look at this, what we're looking at here and some of the conversations that I will share during the city council meeting just around housing and governor's goals and whatnot that she wants to achieve, that's the road piece and the infrastructure piece is a huge consideration of what we're talking about here too. And so I think that we're very constrained road-wise, and that's going to be a very that's going to be a big conversation as part of the next piece of the puzzle that we'll have to tackle. So, because with all this being talked about, we've got to factor that in. Water, power, sewer, streets, public safety, those kinds of things.
And funding sources and transit and all those things C4 is dealing with are really critical. I know what you're dealing with because I've only touched the surface of that, but it's a huge item.
Oh, it's fun stuff. Yes, Councilor Davis. I almost said Chief Davis.
Thanks, Mayor. I would like to also follow up with what the mayor was talking about in regards to access, not only the major transportation networks, but also making sure that we don't develop, confined streets and ways in, way out, school buses, dump trucks, everybody trying to get in and out, but parking. Because people don't have just one car, and then they land up parking in the access ways and stuff. So it seems to me we're going to have to figure in the access ways inside those PUDs as well, to make sure there's ample room for access and parking.
And so noted, I'm a big proponent of complete streets, and I know that there's some communities that are not doing complete streets, and I think that makes things quite challenging. I think Canby is somewhat unique. I mean, most people drive here. That's just the reality. There are
Yeah.
very few people that live and work in Canby. I mean, when you look at the statistics, it's very small. I mean, to that point, most people live here and they drive somewhere else, or they're driving here. So I think those are important elements. And I think there's some uniquenesses to these products when you get into the interior of cottage clusters. We'll go into that more as we get further into that, but so noted that fire is an important, fire accessibility, truck accessibility, those things are important as part of that discussion.
Yeah.
We're pressing time, but any other questions or comments or?
I just wondered, did we answer your questions?
Yeah, I was just going to say for scenario B, I'm just, good questions, but the one where we're adding parks in addition to I'm assuming that would be the one you would prefer.
Yeah.
And again, it's slightly more risky, but I think the risk is limited because we'll work with DLCD and we'll get to the right figures. And the acreages of this may change from what we identified. It could be reduced on the infrastructure piece of this, but that's where we would like to go as staff. That's our recommendation. Okay.
Yeah, I think scenario B is
Scenario B is a good one.
Okay, good.
we seem to be kind of shooting towards the middle, plus or minus, with a lot of this, which makes sense that, it allows us, I think, to ebb and flow and course correct if we need to through the life of the comp plan and what we end up doing. So, okay.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you to everyone on Zoom. Thank you for being here this evening. We appreciate it. Appreciate your expertise. Don, thank you, sir. I will adjourn our work session so that council and staff can get ready for our city council meeting. So we'll be back here as close to 7 o'clock as we can. We will take a bit of a stretch the legs, use the facilities, et cetera. So we will take a break. Thank you.
Use the facility.
Good evening, Canby. Welcome to the May 15th, 2024 City Council regular meeting. If you please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this great community. I thank you for the leaders that are assembled here in our chambers and throughout our community. I thank you so much for this great stretch of weather that we are having. And I ask that you bless our community and those in it. I do ask for just to lift up those in our community right now that are really struggling emotionally, physically, mentally. There's a lot of challenges right now, and just ask that you hold them close and help them through whatever they may be going through. I ask this in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Eileen, do we have any new employee introductions this evening?
Yes, we do. I'd like to call up Monica, and she will introduce our two new employees.
Oh, wow, all right.
As you know, we just introduced Monica to you not too long ago, so.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Monica Stone. I am the wastewater treatment plant supervisor, and I'm very excited to introduce two new wastewater operators that have recently joined our team. To my right is Patrick Mahoney. He is a new operator. And to my left here is Mark Vogel. He is also a new operator. I'd like to tell you a little bit about each of them.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, so Patrick here, he is originally from Southern Oregon. He has worked for Clackamas County Water Environment Services, has about 10 years of experience as a wastewater operator and is a grade 3 certified operator. The two of us have worked together at the City of Woodburn and enjoyed working together very much so there. A lot of skill sets he brings to the team. Him and his family live in Salem. And let's see, what am I forgetting? Yeah, I think, am I forgetting anything? Okay. This was your test. All right. So that's Patrick. Mark and I also worked at the City of Woodburn together. He originally came from Maine, back east, but more recently moved from Alaska, where he worked at the 3 wastewater treatment plants and supervised the maintenance program there very successfully. He has many certifications. Both of them have high priorities on safety, and we're excited to have Mark in his electrical experience and asset management experience as well. So I'd just like to welcome both of them to the team.
Perfect. Well, welcome, gentlemen. It's great to meet you, and thanks for being here. See, it didn't take us very long to get you up in front of us.
No, and I'm going to be back tonight,
Oh,
too.
see, there we go. Well, welcome to the team. We're glad to have you. Thank you very much. Thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
that, yeah. Any other introductions, Ms. Stein? We're good, okay. Next on the agenda is citizen input and community announcements. So this is an opportunity for citizens to address the council and the mayor on non-agenda items or to make community announcements. If you are ever interested in making an announcement or providing some input when you come to the meeting, please fill out the yellow cards, which are on the back podium there where the gentleman all dressed in white is standing. Fill them out, bring them over to the city recorder, and we'll make sure that you get called up. If you are not able to attend but want to anyways and want to Zoom in, please let city staff know before 4:30 on the days of our city council meetings. So with that, first up is Amy, is it Vidan? Vidan. Ms. Vadan. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Amy Vadan. I have been a member of the Canby community for about 20 years, and I'm on the board of directors for Canby Pride. On May 1st, Canby Pride requested that the mayor of Canby make a proclamation declaring June 2024 as Pride Month in the city of Canby. We did not receive a response for 2 weeks, and the mayor ultimately denied our request the night before this meeting. In response to the mayor's denial of a proclamation declaring June as Canby Pride Month, the Canby Pride organization asserts its determination, to make the proclamation independently. While disappointed by the mayor's decision, we stand firm in our commitment to celebrating and uplifting the LGBTQ community in Canby. Through our own efforts, sorry, I'm really nervous.
It's okay. You're doing great.
We will ensure that the vibrant spirit of inclusivity, acceptance, and pride is acknowledged and honored throughout the month of June. We invite all allies and community members to join us in our pursuit of equality and celebration of diversity, and we wish to make the proclamation ourselves. We'll see if I can get through it in time. Whereas the City of Canby is committed to fostering an inclusive and welcoming community where all individuals are valued, respected, and celebrated for their unique identities. Whereas June is recognized globally as Pride Month, commemorating the Stonewall Uprising of June 1969, a pivotal moment in the LGBTQ rights movement. And whereas, I'm so sorry. Whereas Pride Month serves as a time to honor the achievements and contributions of LGBTQ plus individuals, to celebrate the diversity of sexual orientations, gender identities, and expressions, and to advocate for the rights and equality of all people. And whereas Canby Pride, a nonprofit organization dedicated to serving the LGBTQ community in Canby, Oregon, works tirelessly to promote acceptance, understanding, and visibility for LGBTQ individuals and their allies. Whereas the City of Canby recognizes the importance of affirming and supporting LGBTQ plus residents, families, allies, and is committed to creating a community where everyone can live authentically and without fear of discrimination or prejudice. Therefore, we, the organization of Canby Pride, do hereby proclaim June 2024 as Pride Month in the City of Canby, and we urge all residents to join in celebrating the diversity, resilience, and achievements of the LGBTQ plus community. We invite any LGBTQ community members and allies to join us at our annual Pride celebration at Waite Park on Sunday, June 23rd from noon until 4 p.m. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it very much. Next is Christy Smith.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Christy Smith, and I'm here tonight as a concerned member of our community. As someone deeply committed to Canby's well-being and progress, I have dedicated myself to various roles and initiatives aimed at making our city a better place for all. I currently serve on the Library Advisory Board and Suicide Prevention Task Force, where I actively contribute to discussions and efforts to improve our community's resources and support systems. Additionally, as founder and board president of Canby Pride, I have worked tirelessly to promote inclusivity and acceptance, advocating for the rights and visibility of the LGBTQ plus community here in Canby. Despite my ongoing efforts to engage with city leadership, I have encountered challenges securing support for important initiatives. I have twice requested proclamations from you, Mr. Mayor, that would proactively affirm your priority of being a welcoming community. You may recognize those words from your statement for a safe community. Both requests have been denied. Furthermore, my attempts to communicate and collaborate with you and the City Council have been met with delayed responses, sometimes no response at all, and definitely a lack of engagement. I'm deeply frustrated by these roadblocks, especially considering your recent remarks at a City Council meeting about community involvement. Contrary to your assertions, I am actively involved in this community, attending City Council and school board meetings, volunteering with local nonprofits, and engaging in meaningful dialogue on important issues. I believe that open communication and collaboration are essential for fostering a stronger and more inclusive community. That's why I have repeatedly requested to meet with you, Mr. Mayor, and city councilors to discuss our differences and find common ground. However, my efforts to initiate this dialogue have not been reciprocated. In fact, they have either been ignored or disregarded. I honestly don't know which, because I don't receive any replies from you unless I email multiple times explaining that my expectation is to get a reply. I've had conversations with a couple of city councilors, and for that, I am very grateful. You may not remember, Mr. Mayor, but several years ago, you and I were the only two people that attended one of the Coffee with the Mayor events. You told me then to get involved. I'm here now, getting involved, and I'm not going away. I am particularly interested in talking with you about the 2019 Statement for a Safe Community that's on the city's website. So I'm here tonight publicly asking, when will you meet with me?
Thank you, Christy. And I do apologize for the delay. I don't have an excuse for that. I really don't. It was unprofessional and uncalled for. You have been very engaged and you've been very professional in your communications with me, and I dropped the ball. And I apologize for that. I will be in touch with you. We will have another coffee session here in town, and we can talk about the 2019 statement and other pieces as well.
Perfect.
So I will be in touch with you this week.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Audrey Barnett is next.
Hi, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Audrey Barnett, and I'm a community member in Canby. I've been here for, 20 years almost. And I'm here today because I just wanted to commend you and encourage you for standing your post, Mr. Mayor. I believe that as a parent, we've been chosen to be watchmen and shepherds over our families. Part of my testimony was that I lived in shame and rejection for a really long time. I was a single mother of 4 kids, and I was never married, so I lived with shame and embarrassment for most of my life. And I carried it around with me. It kept me silent, and I avoided attention at all costs. Another part of my testimony is that less than 5 years ago, I experienced death, literally flatlined, after a massive tree fell and crushed me in my sleep while camping with my sons, and they saw the whole thing. There's a lot of reasons why I believe God stepped in and spared my life, but I know one of the most important reasons was so that I could be the mother and the shepherd and the watchman over my children and over all children that He's called me to be. You see, the same day that that tree crushed me, 5 years earlier, their dad, my son's dad, died suddenly of a heart attack. The enemy wanted my kids to be orphans, but God said no. He said, I need you to be their mom, and kept me alive. And I made this decision early in my rehabilitation that I was going to begin to live my life for an audience of one, the only one that mattered. And sometimes that means going against the flow. Sometimes that means standing up for things that people might feel uncomfortable with. And that decision has led me on a really exciting journey. Honestly, it broke the muzzle of shame and silence that I wore, and here I am in front of you now, in front of the city. And I am standing for truth. I'm standing for don't mess with our kids. I believe that it is every parent's job, every non-parent's job, every community member's job to stand up and protect children. Children are vulnerable, and they can't protect themselves. And I I also want to shake up your belief system a little bit, just like mine was on that fateful day, and to realize that it's time to stand up and realize that silence isn't safe. It's not safe not to say anything. It's not safe to be quiet. You have to say things, just as we've done today. And I also want to say that families move to Canby to have families, to let their kids be kids. And kids should not be included or subject to adults' sexual identification or their preference. And that's our job as adults, as community members, as parents, to protect our kids and not to hide our light under a bushel, but to speak the truth and speak the truth in love, because all of us matter, all of us are important, all of us were created in God's image with specific purpose, and it's important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Celesta Graves. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would actually really like to give my 3 minutes to Christy Smith. Thank you.
Okay.
I could have done it all in like 5 minutes, but I didn't have that, so I apologize.
That's okay.
So I just wanted to address you and your recent decision to deny the request for the Pride Proclamation. You did respond to me last night, and I appreciate your explanation, but I feel it's important to share my perspective on why such proclamations are vital to our community. The problem with policies that do not acknowledge the struggles of marginalized communities is that they, by default, celebrate only the most privileged among us. By ignoring the unique challenges faced by protected classes, we fail to address the systemic issues of inequality and discrimination that persist in our society. This approach inadvertently upholds the status quo of white supremacy, transphobia, homophobia, and the patriarchy. Leaders should be at the forefront of elevating all members of their community, especially those who are marginalized. Policies and proclamations that recognize and honor the diversity within our community are not just symbolic. They are a powerful statement of inclusion and respect. They show that we value every individual regardless of their race, religion, sexual orientation, gender, or creed. If you do not wish to celebrate us, I ask you to state it plainly. If you do want to celebrate and support us, then I urge you to reconsider issuing proclamations. However, maintaining a stance of neutrality by refraining from such proclamations is, in reality, a way of perpetrating inequality and ignoring the very real issues faced by marginalized communities. As a community leader, I believe it is your responsibility to stand with all residents of Canby, especially those who are often overlooked and marginalized. Acknowledging and celebrating Pride Month through a proclamation should be a significant step towards demonstrating that Canby is an inclusive and welcoming place for everyone. It would actualize the promises you made in the statement for a safe community. So thank you for listening to my perspective, and I hope that we can work together.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you all for your comments. I appreciate that. I don't have any additional yellow cards, so we'll continue on. Oh, I'm sorry. Tell me if you want to bring them over here to the city recorder.
Right now?
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Dan Tews. I'm an old-time Canby resident, product of the Logan Bridge, because you guys know what that is. Class of '81. I live next door now in Oregon City. I have a wildlife refuge there, but I've been involved here in the community for a long time with a lot of my friends. Sorry, my throat is sore. I don't appreciate coming here and being called racist because I don't agree with the alphabet crew. But other than that, if you're going to give a month to something like this, like the LGBTQ? Are you going to give a month to General Canby or veterans or patriots or Proud Boys? What if I come here and say, I want a Proud Boy month? If you do this, you're setting yourself up for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Carlos Montez.
Good evening. So, of course, this is a subject with a lot of concern. I wasn't going to speak till the term white supremacy marginalized and those who are unrepresented. Well, I'll tell you, I grew up homeless of 6 kids. White supremacy, if it was going to affect anybody, it would have been me. I moved to Oregon in 1975, all right? So I slept under the breezeways of grade schools as a child. My parents didn't take any welfare, any of that crap. So now I own a business. I have a pretty good income. I have 3 kids. I reside in Canby. So those words, while I am not white, mean a lot to me because everybody likes to throw that around as a term of racism and exclusivity. So if I myself as a Hispanic man in 1975 can claw my way up to be a regular citizen, pay taxes, and have nice things, then I think anybody, where they put their mind to it, can be what they want to be without having a proclamation or even a month or even a year. I heard the last time I was here at one of these meetings due to pride things, one of these gentlemen here was speaking on the budget for AstroTurf for $1.2 million. If that budget would hold the community standard of being used by everyone. And someone said, well, that's a large sum of money to benefit a few. Now, here we are. If we do this proclamation, is it not the same? A proclamation that's only going to benefit a few? Because there's only a few, and it's not like you're taking anything away from them. You're just not offering what they want. And here we are, discussing this yet again, because they feel like they're not represented. Nobody's taking anything away from them. Not me, not you. So what is it they want? They want you, the city, to say, hey, we accept you. On paper, on the website, whatever it may be. So is that really necessary for them to feel like they're wanted, needed, or feel safe? I feel safe. I've experienced racism, and I'm not bitter about it. I overcame that. Does that still happen today? Absolutely. Am I afraid to shun myself? No. I'll defend myself, and I'll defend anybody else who is being marginalized or pushed around or bullied, whether they're LGBTQ, Black, Hispanic, or white. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montez. Okay, are there any other last-minute yellow cards? Okay, thank you all, I appreciate that. We are going to move forward. If you want to stay and see the rest of the city council meeting, please feel free to do so. If you want to file out, I will give us a couple of minutes to do so. No, everyone's staying?
There's that second opportunity to speak.
Excellent. All right, we're going to move into item number 4, our consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda that includes the minutes of the February 16th, 2024 and March 13th, 2024 City Council and Urban Renewal Agency meeting minutes, appointment to the Heritage and Landmark Commission of member Hannah Ellison with a term ending June 30th, 2026, and appointment to the Heritage and Landmark Commission of member Ron LeBlanc LeBlanc? Okay, it's funny because I know somebody named Ron LeBlanc who lives in Florida. That's what freaked me out. Anyway, Ron LeBlanc with a term ending June 30th, 2025.
Great, thank you.
Second.
Motion has been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Davis to approve the consent agenda, which include the approval of the February 16th, 2024 and March 13th, 2024 City Council and Urban Renewal Agency special meeting minutes. Appointment. Okay. Okay.
They don't care, they're cool with you. Go. They're
Okay.
not probably making a suggestion. They were just talking, go. Go, we're scared of you. Now go.
Oh, good, agree. Doing good recess.
Okay. Stephanie.
I wish they could go in here tonight because the Proud Boys are out there. No, they're not. No, they're not.
Okay, I have a meeting to continue with here, and I'm, Ms. State, you're more than welcome to sit here until it dies down, but I do need, unless there's something you want to address the council on an agenda item, please, let's just lower the chit chat if we can, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, so to start this over, motion made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Davis to approve the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the February 16th, 2024 and March 13th, 2024 City Council and Urban Renewal Agency special meeting minutes, appointment of the Heritage and Landmark Commission of member Hannah Ellison with a term ending June 30th of 2026, appointment to the Heritage and Landmark Commission of member Ron LeBlanc with a term ending June 30th, 2025. Any conversation or question? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Jason. Anyone opposed? That passes, I have to count up, 5-0. All right, next on the agenda is moving into ordinances and resolutions, and I will turn that over to Ms. Stein.
Okay, Mayor, we have, in council, we have a number of these on the agenda tonight. So the first one is Todd, if you will come up and if you have any questions, this is the second reading of an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to amend the contract with First Transit. So this was on your agenda at the last meeting, but Todd is here in case there are any other questions for you.
There's nothing new, unless you have questions about it.
I don't believe we do, Todd, at least I don't. Again, this came up at our last meeting, basically amending our contract for the drivers and support staff for Canby Transit and.
Yeah, we're just adding 3 years to the current contract and approving the cost for the coming 3 years so that we continue our operation. It's pretty
Perfect.
Simple.
Is there any follow-up questions at all from the council? Councilor Patton, any follow-up at all?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Ready for a motion?
I will take a
Mr. Mayor?
motion. Yes, please.
Thank you. I move to adopt ordinance number 1620, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to amend the contract with First Transit, Inc. of Chicago, Illinois, to provide services for an additional 3 years.
Motion has been made by Councilor Davis and seconded by Councilor Sassy to approve ordinance number 1620, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to amend the contract with First Transit Incorporated of Chicago, Illinois, to provide services for an additional 3 years. Any discussion or comment? All right, seeing none, we have a roll call vote.
Counselor Sassy,
Aye.
Counselor Stearns,
Aye.
Counselor Davis,
Aye.
Council President Hensley,
Aye.
Counselor Patton,
Aye.
Okay. Thank you all. Todd, thanks for being here. Next on the agenda is ordinance number 1621, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter an agreement with Herd Farms for removal of wastewater sludge to a second reading on June 5th, 2024.
And Monica is here again.
Okay.
To present this ordinance to you.
Monica, let's talk about wastewater.
All right. Good evening again. This is a contract to remove sludge from the wastewater treatment plant. Right now, we currently have a contract with Herd Farms and have worked with them for the past 10 years to remove sludge, to take the sludge to their farm, to further treat it, and to turn it into beneficial reuse biosolids, and to land apply that material to grow hay, grass in the Roseburg area. This contract is due to expire at the end of June. Therefore, we went out and requested quotes, received 2 quotes, and Herd Farms appeared to be the lowest bidder. And so we are recommending that we continue working with Herd Farms in this capacity and to sign a 1-year contract to continue that. The cost has increased up to $105 per ton. I'm currently at $82 per dry ton. But with the increase in fuel charges and wages, feel that's very reasonable, and compared to the other quote, very reasonable. So,
Yeah, this is pretty much housekeeping. We do this.
yeah.
We do this poopy contract every year.
There you go.
So, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 1621, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Herd Farms for removal of wastewater sludge to a second reading on June 5th, 2024.
Second.
Motion made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Davis to approve ordinance number 1621, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Herd Farms for removal of wastewater sludge to a second reading on June 5th of 2024. Any discussion or comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Sorry, aye.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm not opposing, I'm agreeing to it.
All right, passes 5-0. Next up on the agenda is ordinance. Thanks, Monica.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is ordinance 1622, an ordinance awarding the construction contract with Eagle Elsner Incorporated in the amount of $1,120,120 for construction of the 2024 street maintenance and urban renewal agency improvement project to a second reading on June 5th of 2024. And I believe we have,
Jerry here for this item.
is it
Do we?
Jerry and Spencer?
Yep.
Fabulous. I do. You're here, so let's use you. Evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Good evening.
You want me to start with this? Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we're bringing to you the annual street maintenance fee contract, and we added the alleyway urban renewal project to it. So we're going to be paying for this out of the street maintenance fee, and we're going to let Scott figure out how to move that money back into it with at a different meeting with the urban renewal agency. But Spencer has been handling this now the last couple of years because he's been coming under budget. So we had $1.2 million budgeted and came in, what did we come in at? $451,000 under budget. 450,000? We were at, for the street maintenance portion of it. And so you'll see, I guess I jumped ahead. I was going to let him get into the portion of where it was all spread out, but we bid it together. The street maintenance came in at $748,000. We had $1.2 million budgeted, which is great. We added the alleys to it, which we had, let me see, I think on the, I wrote it down on the 375. Yeah, let me find this real quick. Yeah, we came in at $371,735 on the alleyway project, which is way under budget. So that's good news also. So anyways, basically, we're bringing this for you because we want to get going on, get the contract approved and all that so we can get to work after July 1. And so I'll let Spencer talk about what he's doing with the project.
Okay.
So this year, we're planning on finishing paving the rest of North Redwood Street, continuing from where we left off 2 years ago at 13th all the way to Territorial. We're also going to be paving on southeast or southwest 2nd Avenue from Elm over to Birch Street, so kind of in front of Pat Pride area, as well as in front of the high school and behind the Vietnam Memorial where the road is pretty unraveling through there, especially with all the extra diversion from 99. We were also able to do a slurry seal on some of the lower impact roads, First Avenue, as well as the First Avenue parking lot, and then 2nd Avenue and the cinema parking lot, as well as southeast 16th Avenue from Ivy to the end of the cul-de-sac.
Spencer's been working on going into more of a micro seal, a slurry seal on the places so that we can do it. Like First Avenue, when we did that, all the bump outs, all of the landscaping, made it all handwork, very expensive. And I'm scared to have to repave that and pull that all out and repave it. So he's going to try a slurry seal on it and try to get some more life out of that so we don't have to do that, saving money, get more bang for our buck. I did find my notes here. The URA committed $585,000 in the minutes that I got for alleyways, and we came in at $371,000. So that's the number I was looking for. Sorry, I have a lot, that combining it made it tricky, but we saved a lot of money by combining the projects.
So talk to me about slurry seal. 'Cause
Yes.
remember we had this conversation.
Yes.
10 years ago.
Yes.
When we did that in, I want to say the Tofty Farms.
Tofty Farms.
Yes. And it didn't work so well.
It didn't?
Well, okay, it was not a popular call by the council felt that was not a very popular call to make, to do the slurry seal.
Yep.
So fill me in.
I'd love to, unless you want to go for it. So, yeah, since then, we've looked into it, and we've done some experimenting with it, and we did it at our Public Works facility. And it's really brought life to it. And with it, we're crack sealing, and you can talk to Councilor Padden about crack sealing. He's been on me about that because it saves our pavement. So the advantage of this is I am not a big fan of slurry seal either for cost for that. But in this particular situation, we believe, and our engineer believes, this is the best application in this downtown area. And it's not in a public neighborhood in front of people's houses where it's going to go. It's going to protect our First Avenue urban renewal investment that we put in down there. I had to say that, Councilor Davis, just to sell you. But what we want to do, we want you to approve this and watch it and sell you on it.
No, and
I mean, that's kind of just a display down there where everyone's at, look at it and see what you think, Mayor Hodson.
So, yeah, I mean, kind of skunk eyeing the whole slurry seal.
Yes.
And, I mean, you have not steered us wrong with our paving projects as long as I've been here on the council. So, no, I trust you, and so therefore, I suppose I need to trust you, Spencer, then, don't I?
I'll learn it from you.
No, okay. Hey, it's important, the whole project is important to be done and get done. Again, like I said, history, just brought up question regarding slurry seal. So I just wanted to address that.
I do want to add also, we do have money left over. We were under budget And so Spencer's going to be working on doing smaller projects in areas where there's failures and concentrate on that and get ahead of next year's street maintenance. So feeling pretty good about this year and the prices. It's nice to come up here under budget for once. And I think Councillor Davis kind of required that last time, is what I gathered in the minutes, that we need to be under budget this time. So I'm happy we were able to come and do that and not have to say we were over again.
Well, we also have to get the work done that we need to get
We
done.
do,
for the
yes,
dollars
but
that we
it's
have.
just nice to see prices kind of leveling out is what I'm getting at. But
Councilor Davis.
Real quick, the alleys that are going to be done, which ones are they?
There's a total of 8 alleys. The majority would be in between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. I believe it's ranging from Elm Street all the way to Ivy.
So pretty much all those things.
It's the downtown areas.
But we had to make sure it was in the URD district, so it just kind of hit that whole URD district.
Yeah, nice. Very good, thank you.
We even have a supporter here, Daniel, for the alleyway project, so I think he's here to make sure it goes through.
Get those alleys fixed. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Councilor Davis.
Comment when it's okay.
No, sorry, Jason, go ahead.
I just want to say that I really support this work. If any of you travel back along Territorial, you'll notice several years ago, the city contracted to have this crack seal work done. And you can definitely see a difference in the sections of the street where the crack seal was done and where it was not, and how it has helped extend the longevity. No, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm sorry. I'm driving with some other people in the car, so bear with me. Yeah, so it's done an amazing job of extending the lifespan of this particular piece of road, and so I wholeheartedly support it.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason, or Councilor Patton.
Ready for a motion?
I am indeed, Councilor Davis.
I move to approve ordinance 1622, an ordinance awarding the construction contract with Eagle Elsner, Inc. in the amount of $1,120,120 for the construction of the 2024 street maintenance and URA improvement projects to come up for second reading on June 5th, 2024.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Davis and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve ordinance number 1622, an ordinance awarding the construction contract with Eagle Elsner Incorporated in the amount of $1,120,120 for construction of the 2024 Street Maintenance and Urban Renewal Agency Improvement Project to a second reading on June 5th. Any further discussion or comment?
Real quick, Mayor, just on your bid tabulations on the schedule, did you guys do the bid tabulations on that?
The engineer.
The engineer? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Councilor Henry, do you have an opinion? Abstention?
Oh, aye, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I said it in my head.
Motion carries 5-0. Next, thank you both.
Thanks, Mayor and
Appreciate it.
Council.
Thanks, you guys.
Next is resolution number 1405, a resolution authorizing a rate increase and establishing a new rate schedule for garbage collection by Canby Disposal within the City of Canby. Ms. Eileen.
Do you want to come forward? And Jerry, if you would just come forward again, thank you. Just to make sure that there's, this is the annual rate increase, and I'll turn it over to Jerry or.
I'm going to, thanks, Mayor and Council. We're here tonight to go over the franchise fee, I guess, and I'll let the professional here hand it off to him.
Okay, Good evening, Mayor Hodson and council members. I appreciate the time tonight. My name is Chris Wright. I'm the site manager for Canby Disposal Company. For the record, I'd like to say that I did bring a copy of the franchise agreement tonight. If you guys remember last year, we did not have one, so I do have it. I'd also like to introduce Jonathan Newey, he just relocated to Canby from Southern Oregon to join our accounting team, so you'll be getting some communication from him in the future. So I did want to, kind of address a few things that were brought up last year, weather-related issues that we had, prior to the meeting last year. Fortunately, we had a better winter this year, but we did have one storm that caused some delays in service, but I feel we did a much better job communicating with the customers and with the city in that case, so.
I would agree.
Okay. And then another issue was, our phone lines weren't getting answered promptly. And since that time, we've added 2 full-time CSRs to our team. And since 2022, we've added a total of 6 customer service reps to our team. And our current hold times are consistently under 2 minutes now. So I think that's pretty good for the residents of Canby. Josh couldn't be here tonight. He had a conflict with another city out in Columbia County, so he would like to be here, but I did want to mention that Josh and I have been meeting regularly with Jerry and Eileen, making sure we have a strong relationship and open communication with the city. And we also had a coffee meeting with Councilor Patton a couple weeks ago that resulted in some good conversation as well. I did want to mention too, Canby Disposal is very active in the community. We support a lot of the local organizations in the city, such as the Canby Center, Kiwanis, Rotary, FFA, Chamber of Commerce, and Volunteer Fire Department for the fireworks show. And, that's just to name a few of the donations and sponsorships we do in the community. I did want to mention also one enhancement to our service recently is allowing batteries to be recycled at the curb. So any resident of the city of Canby can now place their batteries in a 1-quart bag and into their glass bin, and we'll pick them up and get them recycled for them. Kind of last thing I wanted to mention is, as you all know, as business leaders and members of the community, goods and services, the prices are dramatically increasing for almost everything nowadays. And we've also had to be consistent with our wages, and we've been increasing our wages 4 to 7% annually for the last several years to keep our, our employees at living wage jobs. And I also wanted to say, disposal costs are up 10 to 15% throughout the region, and as well as trucks. Getting a new truck is now 25% more than it was, 2 years ago. Last thing I would like to say is other refuse companies in nearby communities are requesting price increases in the 10 to 12% range, which would be close to 3 times the amount we're requesting in some cases. So thank you again for allowing me to say some words tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Councilor Patton, did you have any questions? Okay. Yes, Council President Hensley.
Well, it's been about a year, and this is actually, I think, before Eileen, because I remember Scott Archer was part of the conversation regarding customer service and pickup times, et cetera. And there were several complaints that were coming to counselors, and so we asked that a log be kept at City Hall for anybody calling to complain, and I'm just wondering how that looks these days. Because I know that in my personal experience, the customer service level is improved a bit, but not a lot. So I'm just wondering how the rest of the community has been, if we have any complaints about failed pickups and that kind of thing.
I am not aware that we have received any complaints this last year about waste disposal. I will check with staff and let you know if there are.
I don't think that the issue is as big of a deal as it was in the first part of the transition, but I'm just wondering how the improvement looks. I mean, I didn't call you and tell you about our issues, obviously, at home, but so I'm just wondering if other people would have, if we have anything on the logs.
Jerry, are you aware of any?
No, and we were, can you hear me all right? We were early on when I mean, even Counselor Sassy, I think you had some problems before you were city councilor, and the calls would come down to Public Works also. And when I hear that stuff, I have his cell phone and he always answers for me. So it's gone to nothing at Public Works. I haven't heard any complaints down there, but
Okay, well, that's good news.
yeah,
Okay, thank
on
you.
our end. And we had troubles at first too on our garbage end, and we've addressed all that with them also too. So
Okay.
I really enjoy working with them and their team now. So,
Okay.
sorry I didn't
Now,
before, but
yeah.
yeah. It was a
No.
transition,
Yeah.
It was just a transition that was would have been hard for anyone, but.
Yeah, and
that's fair.
those regular meetings that Chris was talking about, they really have helped kind of minimize we just have those meetings and we talk through the issues.
Okay,
So,
good news. All right, thank you.
Counselor Sassy.
So I'm probably your biggest fan because I have a landscape business, so I rely on you Monday through Friday, and it has gotten better. The one thing that I still see, and I think it's still getting better too, is when you have drivers go out and vacation, sometimes the new guys miss a little section of the route and stuff, and so that's the only thing I can see, but it's gotten so much better.
I'm glad to hear that, and
Yeah.
it is challenging when we have people on vacation for people, to run routes they aren't familiar with. We try to do as much cross-training as we can, but can't get to every route, so. And I was going to mention too, any of you are more than welcome to call my cell phone number. You can get my number from Jerry if you have any issues with the service, and I'll
give it out right now.
Please don't.
Did you have a comment or question? Yeah. Counselor Davis.
Thanks again for coming tonight. And, I can say that you guys have really demonstrated trying to fit into the community really well. And I've seen such a huge improvement in the last year or so from your community involvement, and your customer service is excellent.
Well, thank you.
So great job with that. And don't forget to mention that you were there for Shred It Day too.
Oh, that's right.
Love Shred Day.
Yeah, that was a busy day, but we appreciate your support with that too. And I think that this rate increase is very reasonable considering the cost of living increases.
Thank you, Councilor Davis. I appreciate it. And I would mention too, I did move to Canby last September, so it's nice to be a member of the community now, so.
Well, welcome to town.
Thank you.
All right.
And he's paying the rates he's charging, so that's good.
Great. Any other comments or questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. We'll take a motion then if we've got nothing else.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Move it to adopt resolution number 1405, a resolution authorizing a rate increase and establishing a new rate schedule for garbage collection by Canby Disposal within the city of Canby.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Sassy and seconded by Counselor Davis to approve ordinance number 1622. Nope, wrong one, sorry. Resolution 1405. Turn over my script. A resolution authorizing a rate increase and establishing a new rate schedule for garbage collection by Canby Disposal within the city of Canby. Any further discussion? Yes, Counselor Stearns.
Yeah, I got too much stuff here. I noticed that the rate increases are 4.25 residential, 4.27 commercial, and drop box is 3.37. I just wanted to say that because I had to look a while for the ordinance to find out what the increase was. I just thought it would be a good idea to put that on the record, what the increase that we're approving is. And I noticed that sort of language is missing from the ordinance itself, and I just thought it'd be a good idea to put that on there. I think it's a fair increase, so I'm not opposed to it. I just think it should be clear so those who are watching say there was an increase and they may get confused with another rate increase from another entity, and
sure.
So that's one thing I would.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Okay. Counselor Patton, again, any other comments or questions?
No, as I had said, I had actually had a meeting with the gentleman from Waste Connection, and they answered some of my questions then, and that as I had reported the other day, and I feel that they've made some real improvements, and hope that the improvements continue, so I'm fine.
Okay. Then I will, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 5-0.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Thanks, Jerry.
Yep. Thanks, Jerry.
Last item under ordinances and resolutions is resolution number 1406, a resolution of the City of Canby adopting the limitation of liability for certain claims arising from the use of trails or structures within public easements and unimproved rights-of-way pursuant to ORS 105.668. There is a mouthful there.
There is a mouthful there, and I'm going to summarize it very quickly. David is going to give you the staff report on this, but basically this is reinstituting the concept known as recreational immunity. So, David, take this away, if you would.
Sure thing. Yeah, you bet. So, as Eileen said, this is, I would call it sort of a half measure to address, if you recall, from last year, the Court of Appeals had a decision that involved somebody using a trail and basically the person claiming that they weren't using it for recreational purposes, they were using it to get from point A to point B. And the court felt that was persuasive and essentially kind of gutted the heart of recreational immunity. What's before you tonight is a product of the last legislative session, the most recent one. I say it's sort of a half measure because it doesn't fully restore, at least I think in my opinion, and I think in most local government attorneys' opinion, recreational immunity. It does restore it with respect to trails, with respect to walkways, with respect to staircases. What it requires us to do in order to benefit from that is to opt in to that immunity. And so the resolution for you tonight would, if it's approved, would do that. You would basically, the city would be back at a level of recreational immunity for trails, for sidewalks, walkways, staircases. That was what it was before the court case. What's sort of left undone is things that don't fall into that bucket. Parks, for instance, is a big one. Open spaces the city might have that are available for the public to use and recreate. So I would say that's the intent is that's coming and going to be addressed in the next legislative session. But for now, this is about as far as they got, and it's something. And so there's really nothing to be lost here. It's only kind of getting back some of what you and other cities throughout the state previously had with recreational immunity. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Yeah, that was a hot topic of conversation at I think either a League of Oregon Cities conference a couple of years ago about this and what it would do or how much of a greater challenge it would be to the cities in terms of protecting ourselves in park-like situations. So I appreciate that we're getting ahead of this piece of it. Are there any questions or comments? Eileen, did you have a comment?
Yes, I just have one other comment, and that is that the legislation exempts cities that are over 500,000, but for those that are smaller than that, the legislation requires the adoption of this resolution. So that's why it is before you.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Councilor Stearns.
We're limiting the liability of the city. What are we limiting it to? What is the limit the liability to? Anytime I see something that says limiting the liability, there's always a question of.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess maybe just very briefly, recreational immunity that's existed for a long time until the case from last year kind of made it a little more hollow. But going back to what it has been, basically what the state law says is that landowners, including the city, but private landowners as well, if they open up their property to allow the public to come on and hike or recreate, and effectively don't charge a fee for that. There's some subtleties there, but just for the most part, as long as you allow people to come on your property to recreate, then if someone gets injured while doing that, the property owner is not going to be liable for that injury. Basically, someone tried to sue the property owner for a slip and fall type thing, or whatever the allegation might be. The property owner can say, well, wait a minute, we have recreational immunity. This case should be thrown out. And so then that's what this is sort of taking I guess what I'd say a step back again towards that concept for trails. What it leaves open is parkland and open space. And that's something the legislature has indicated they will address at the next session.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Mr. Doofman? Okay. Any discussion items?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I move to adopt resolution number 1406, a resolution adopting the limitation of liability for certain claims arising from the use of trails or structures within the public easements and unimproved rights of way pursuant to ORS 105.668.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Or I'll fall asleep at the wheel.
No, I mean, if we don't want to do it, that's how that works. Motion's been passed by Counselor Sassy and seconded by Counselor Davis to adopt resolution number 1406, a resolution of the City of Canby adopting the limitation of liability for certain claims arising from the use of trails or structures within public easements and unimproved rights of way pursuant to ORS 105.668. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 5-0. Athank you all very much. Next on the agenda is, under old business, is city attorney recruitment.
Excuse me. Mayor and council, we are going to go ahead and start the process of issuing an RFP for city attorney services pursuant to your direction at the last meeting. So.
Okay, perfect.
Question?
Yes, sir.
I don't recall having that discussion.
I don't either. I'm with you.
Sorry.
I thought we were good with the services we had.
Yeah,
now.
we made the decision that we were good with the services that we had.
I think.
That is.
I will go back and watch the meeting because I'm.
I do not recall
You're mine.
putting that out.
Oh, okay. So you are happy with just continuing
Absolutely.
Barry Elsner?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I would just say, well, that's great and flattering. The way your rules are written right now would require an RFP. And so that's really the spirit of going out. I think there are a lot of other good reasons to do that, but how we ended up there is just simply because your rules for those types of services would require an RFP.
Okay, so this would be an RFP for the services that we're currently receiving from you for an outside law firm.
Correct.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, I'd like to see the proposal before it goes out.
Okay.
And how
Absolutely.
we're going to evaluate those proposals and who's going to evaluate those proposals.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Counselor Patton, you have a comment?
Not particular. I mean, I kind of knew this was going to happen. I also don't remember directing anybody to on this at the previous meeting, but I know that I did have a conversation with Eileen, and I know for sure I had asked Eileen, and I think Mr. Doofman, what the logistics were for this, because I figured with this sort of contract, eventually we would need to have to go out for an RFP. We could not just continue to do it based on our charter. So this move does not come as a surprise to me.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, so RFP it is. Okay, moving forward on that. Move into mayor's business. I just have a couple of things. So there will be no Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meetings here in which usually occurs the first Thursday of every month for June because of the Coordinating Committee retreat later in the month. And then the July meeting has been canceled as well because that is Independence Day. And nobody wants to go have a meeting at county offices. The big thing at the retreat that will be discussed, day one is discussion on transportation and looking ahead to the next legislative session and how we want to try to position Clackamas County and what are the issues that matter most in that regards. And then on Saturday morning will be discussion on housing, very similar to what we've had this evening. What are we looking at kind of across the county for those discussions? So that'll be going on at the retreat. Second thing is we did place a time capsule in the arch on Grant Street 2 weeks ago. So I wanted to thank the Canby Tourism team, Canby Public Works team, and then our Heritage and Landmark Commission for making that happen. It was chock full of, newspaper articles from a couple, whole papers, from the last couple weeks, and then a realtor report and some other tchotchkes and things. What else was in there? Menus from local restaurants. So if you want to stick around, it'll be opened in 50 years. So
May 2074.
mark your calendars.
I will not be here.
So no, it was a great event that we put on. It kind of, I think, puts a bow on that project for the city. Two additional pieces here. So one of the committees I'm involved in is the Metro Mayors Consortium, and so I sit on a subcommittee on transportation. So looking ahead to the legislative sessions in 2025 and 2026, even though the tolling has been put on hold by the government, it's not necessarily off the table for discussion or coming back to life for us to be dealing with. And so what the Metro mayors are looking at and discussing are other options that we can, as a mayor's group, get behind to take to the legislature and pressure them on. And so just any input that this council would have for me on that, on potential ideas, which would be, again, tolling coming back around, and is that something that we want to support in any kind of form? They're looking, conversation pieces would be getting behind a gas tax increase, vehicle miles traveled, tracking and paying in that way, increased vehicle registration across all vehicles, increasing vehicle registration only on electric vehicles and hybrids, and then pressing the legislature about improving the budgeting process for projects. As many of you know, we did get a very sizable kicker check, and the state reported excess revenue here in this last budget cycle that many think in the Metro Mayor's Group could have been budgeted better and allocated towards highway projects and bridge projects in the state. So those are things that are being looked at and tackled by that group that we're dealing with. The other subcommittee I'm involved in is on housing. Again, what are we looking at in terms of dwellings? The governor, her goal is reaching a point of establishing 36,000 new dwellings each year in the state. And so looking at what does that look like? And we just had an arbitrary conversation about Obviously, the easy thing for, the ease of conversation was, if you peanut buttered all 36,000 dwellings across the state, the city of Canby would have to build 144 plus dwellings a year to, meet our contribution if it was peanut buttered across, every jurisdiction and city equally. Based on population. Obviously, a very simple breakdown. That's not how that would work, because I don't see much of Eastern Oregon trying to put in a large number of housing projects if it's not needed. So more to come on that, but I just wanted to give you all a heads up that that's some of the conversation that's been going on in those regards. That is all that I have of right now, and we'll start with councilor comments and liaison reports, and we will start with Council President Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to say thank you for being steadfast in your decisions on keeping a limited scope on how we do proclamations here. And I think that the spirit of your decision does, in fact, reflect in our statement in 2019, in that we inherit value of all persons within community regardless of race, sex, education, national origin, religion, age, sexual orientation, and other characteristics. We don't and haven't historically done any proclamation acknowledging any one group over another. And I'm glad that we do that, because that innately is inclusivity. So thank you for that. Moving on to my liaison reports, I have Traffic Safety Commission. I want to thank Bob Canberra. He's done an excellent job as our chair for the last few years, but he has resigned, and he's moving out of the community to be near his daughter. It's not because he doesn't like Canby, he actually loves it here, but family needs are calling him away. So he has resigned, and now we have an opening. So we need another Traffic Safety Commission member. So if you are interested in all things traffic, please get a hold of Maya and get that application in so that we can get you involved. The Canby School District front, Eccles principal Kelly Rogers received the CARE Award. So that was fun to be there and watch her get her little rewards from the chair, from Dr. Downs and the Kiwanis Club. And then Ava, I'm going to say her name wrong probably, Vordermark. She is the high school representative, and she gave a report on some exciting things that the students have done. And so I want to congratulate the choir for their 5A state championship, second year in a row. And the band is placed third place in their state finish. The lacrosse team defeated West Lynn, which apparently is a first time in school history, so they're pretty proud of that. And our baseball team is currently second in the state in rankings. So we want to congratulate all the students and athletes for their achievements, and they're excited to know that there's only 6 weeks left of school. And I was remiss
Five if you have a senior.
Well, that's true, but, well, yeah, we have a junior, but he has a senior girlfriend, so we're kind of like crazy at the house. But I forgot to say something last meeting, and so I'm going to take this opportunity, since we're talking about the schools. The third graders did a field trip, and they did a tour of Canby, and it was the cutest thing. We had buses of kiddos all through town. They picnicked in the parks. They came to the library. They came down to the police department. I want to thank Canby PD and Jerry and his team from Public Works. They brought pretty much every piece of equipment they could dig up and brought it down there, and the kids were all over the equipment. They were honking horns all day long, and we just let them be kids. They had a ball. They got to go, a couple of the groups got to go visit the holding cells in the police department, and Jerry got razzed from one of the kids because apparently somebody's dad didn't like the street sweeper job that was being done. And so that was like, but my favorite moment was this little girl when I was taking questions and want to know what city council does, and I brought up the budget. Her question is, do you sit in chairs when you count all the money? Oh, my heart. It was the funniest, cutest thing. I was like, well, they don't actually let us touch the money, but we do sit in chairs when we look at all the numbers on a paper. It was the cutest. It was a very fun day. It was beautiful weather. We couldn't have asked for better. So I want to thank PD, Public Works, Library, everybody that was involved in putting those on for those kiddos, because they, I think, just had a ball. So that was fun. Also, I attended a Zoom meeting this afternoon with the French Prairie Forum. I'm trying to remember to get on those when I don't get on them every month, but I try. And today was an interesting presentation from the Oregon Department of Agriculture, which is kind of funny that came up today alongside of our housing presentation from dawn to this evening, because our French Prairie area, which is we're sitting in, top 5 agriculture producing counties, Marion and Clackamas are in those top 5, and they're in the French Prairie area. Oregon leads the nation in 19 crops and industries. 16 of them come from the French Prairie area, and it's because we have the class 1 soils. So we should probably think about that before we fill them up with houses, is my personal thought. But anyway, they have been studying what the UGB expansion effects will be on that agriculture stuff. So I thought that was very interesting. I have lots of geeky numbers if you're interested later, but I just found it very interesting today. And that, I believe, concludes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Padden.
Yeah, so for my activities, I attended the time capsule internment or
oh yeah, we did.
I can't remember. There was I think it was internment into the arch. That was a fun ceremony, and then went to the tree planting near the old city hall. Flew on down to the library and chatted with the ODOT folks and some of the people there that were at the fair that was held at the library that night, and then also went to the First Thursday event. I've been working to try and go to more of those and support the folks doing that. So that was nice to see. I attended the chamber luncheon last week or the week before last. I always try to get to those when I'm in town as well. As far as liaison reports go, I don't have anything at this time. It's been busy at work, so I'm a little behind on catching up on some of that stuff, so I apologize for that. The last thing I just want to say is that while I understand folks' passions about proclamations and stuff, I freely admit that is not my chicken. I have no say over the proclamations. I have had conversations with the mayor about the Canby Pride group and trying to come to some sort of compromise to make sure that their needs are being filled along with everybody else's. And that's that. I think the statement that by the proclamations that are made currently don't necessarily signal out a particular group. We have done proclamations for veterans and different groups, and so essentially that is the point of a proclamation, is to call out a particular group or a particular activity and put that in the spotlight. So I find that statement interesting. I will say that I freely admit and am proud to say that I probably am one of the only counselors that respond to the Canby Pride Group's emails that they send to us, and I stop and chat with them at the booth at First Thursday. As a city councilor, I am not elected to a particular district. Well, actually, I'm not elected at all. I've been appointed, but for all intents and purposes, I'm not elected to a particular district or a particular party or group of people. It's my job to listen to all members of the community, whether I agree with them or not. And I can assure you that there are members of this community that I don't agree with. But that does not stop me from listening to what they have to say and taking that into consideration. And I would say that if there are counselors that are not willing to do that, then they really need to consider their role as a city councilor. I like I said, I have no problem listening to what people have to say. I don't enjoy members of the community vilifying other members of the community, regardless of what their beliefs are. And I'm pretty disappointed that while I was not able to witness it because I am remote tonight, I'm pretty disappointed that there was a disturbance in the council chamber. That is not what Canby is about, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilor Patton. I appreciate that.
I have a quick question directed to you about communications, if that's okay.
Sure.
Thank you. In my tenure on council, it's kind of been the protocol that if an email is addressed to mayor and council, and it's something like a proclamation request or whatever, we just have it's been the protocol that we stand down and let you address those things. Do we have a change of policy I don't know about? Or are we supposed to be responding to those things? Or do we just leave it to you? I'm just wondering if we have a change since I've started this.
No, I think that's generally been, that has generally been the protocol. With that being said, it usually gets, when it's issues more towards policy or procedural kinds of things, or there's a question about, a direction or whatever, then that then usually falls to the mayor to do something like, what Ms. Smith was asking about. I don't see a problem with, an individual councilor reaching out and saying, hey, thank you for the email, or, whatever, like Councilor Patton was talking about, putting in, his comments or whatever to respond to that email. So, something like that. I mean, it's
I just don't want to overstep my
kind of a
bounds, but
fine
I don't want to
line.
neglect
Yeah.
either. So
No.
that's why I wanted to inquire. Thank you.
You bet. Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. I had the opportunity to attend the prayer breakfast over at Cutsforth, and I thought the mayor did an excellent job as the keynote speaker at the prayer breakfast, so good job.
Thanks.
That was well attended, as always. I also attended the funeral of Mike Zagava, and as the community knows, Mike passed away, and we had a funeral at St. Patrick's, and then an event over at the Civic Center, and as well as the high school. Mike will be missed in this community, very much so. Keep his family in your prayers. Was able to attend the time capsule as well as the first Thursday event downtown. It was well attended, nice weather. So a great job on that. Reminder that the budget committee is tomorrow night. And I hope that the rest of the council takes the time to review the budget in detail. I was wondering about the Maple Street Park status. I understand that I'm getting concerned, July is just right around the corner and we're supposed to start construction July 1st. And a year ago, we were talking about the same thing, and I haven't heard any status update as far as the contract being signed and ready to go so construction can start July 1st.
Councilor Davis, I just received an email from our procurement person, and I was told that David Doofman's got it, our attorney looking at it. So do you have that, sir, to take a look at?
Forgive me, is this the part with field turf?
Yes.
And
Yep.
project? Okay.
You do have it?
Yeah, I can certainly give an update. So the issue is the way, we're just trying to nail down with the group so the way that you have this contract is through what's called a cooperative procurement. And that's basically means that it's already been bid, it's already been the process basically for the procurement has been done by another agency. With that, then it's a contract and a set of contract documents that would be what we need to sign. And there's just been some real difficulty getting exactly what those documents are from, I guess it's the Intermountain Educational Service District, I think is the group. So I sent another email today to try to get that clarified and hopefully, but I said to Brenda is by the end of the week, I can actually start getting this towards a signature. I just don't have the actual documents that we need to sign yet. I'm waiting for those.
Do you see there being a problem with us meeting, getting a contract approved by July 1? For a start date?
Not at
Okay.
all, as long as, you know, once I've just been sort of pointed to, here's the set of contract documents, David, it should be very quick to get that in front of council and approved. It's just a matter of getting them.
We're approved. We're approved. We've done the 30-day waiting period. Now we just got to get I guess we just got to get the signature.
Great.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
yep, and that's even better. I apologize, I forgot that piece had been done. Yeah, it's then just a matter of having it. I just want to look at it to make sure it reflects what, you know, the original terms were. There's no changes there, but it's been a little bit of a mystery trying to get this thing. It's largely pretty simple at this point. And if we're not coming back to council, it's going to go even that much faster. So.
And Mr. Doofman, there's a lot going on. I mean, but yeah, we want to keep this one going. And thanks, Councilor Davis, for bringing it up again, because we have a Parks meeting Tuesday and we need to report back. So
Yeah, I think once, David, you're looking at it, or once you're comfortable with it, then I can sign it. So
that's what we're.
Great. Excellent. Yep.
Thank you.
You know, no problem before July 1, that's for sure. Hopefully by, you know, beginning of next week at the latest. So.
Okay, thank you. And then Dodds Farm design the contract's been let, and the design company started today, I believe, on the design for Dodds Farm, which is great work. Jerry's crew did a great job in regards to getting the concrete at Legacy ready to go. And so right now we're just waiting on the contractors to get a few more certifications under them. Hopefully by the end of June, we should start seeing the exercise courts put out at Legacy Park. I know the adult center is excited about that, getting that put in too, because that's part of their walking trail for the adult center. So they're excited about that. I'm going to be going going back to the Park and Rec Committee, because I know in reviewing our minutes, the projects that we wanted to see in this year's budget were Dodds Farm, Maple Street, park improvements, as well as Waite Park Master Plan. We did not address any dog park for the 24-25 budget. And we do feel it's a priority, but as the design of it will be around the Walnut Street, we don't feel that it makes sense putting that money into the budget next year for the dog park up off of Walnut and First. We do see the importance of the dog park, but in the following year budget, we'd rather, I know reviewing their notes, I'd rather see the Waite Park Master Plan into the budget. So we'll be reaffirming that with the Park and Rec Committee. So we'll be moving that forward. Just a few things on the fireworks front. I really want to thank, like Canby Disposal and some other companies. Canby Disposal is a major sponsor now for our fireworks. And we really appreciate everybody's donation coming in for the fireworks. Good news is this year we're taken care of, and now we're working on the down payment for the following year's fireworks. And so we'll continue to provide advertisement for all the major sponsors, which has already been on Facebook and stuff like that. So, and I know that Chief Austin has been working with Jamie Stickle on a city grant, potentially to add to the fireworks. So good news is it's going to happen this year and probably the following year.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so that will be ready to go.
And then I just wanted to touch bases very briefly. You know, I know that the last meeting, we had the IT contract in front of us. And I just really stress the importance that I don't think we're ready for this to be a council agenda item until we have a work session. I feel really uncomfortable with the lack of knowledge of the process in making sure that, because I guess that's a question I had for Mr. Doofman too, is does the council have to approve authorizing to put this out to bid, to proposal? Because I don't recall authorizing to put it out for proposal. And I felt blindsided by the fact that it was put out to proposal and was actually evaluated without council knowledge. And so that's why I think it's important for us to do the process. I'm around process, you know, and make sure that the process is right.
So, you know, it may be helpful at some point if there is a discussion, you know, specifically about that, to also maybe just include, you know, a discussion about procurement and, you know, how the policy that you have, that you've adopted, and I believe it's been, you know, in place in its current form for at least a couple of years, been changes here and there, and made some changes to the thresholds recently, the last meeting or two, but to answer your question, Councilor, no, as it's written right now, you don't need to provide that direction. It's sort of laid out in the policy, and that's very consistent with how I think all of our clients tend to approach these things in terms of, you know, when do you do an RFP? When do you have to, you know, have, you know, maybe quote something less than a full RFP? Normally, you know, the council's direction, if you will, is embodied in the policy. And so if there are concerns about, you know, a desire to say, hey, you know, maybe the council would like more input before a solicitation is issued, I think the place to sort of look to first is your existing, you know, procurement rules. The caution I'd add, and again, this is probably a larger conversation than, you know, we want to get into tonight, but is, you know, how many of those do you really want to be seeing, right? And it can be a little bit difficult to draw lines about, well, you know, in this case, the council wants to have a, you know, more specific direction about the process. You know, in these cases, we wouldn't. But if the concern is about the process, I think the first place to sort of look and sort of have a discussion would be about what exists in your current policy around those things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, you know, I just go back to, I mean, I haven't been on council that long, so I'm still learning, granted. But at the same time too, since I've been on here, we've always been informed when something's going to be put out for proposal. And in this case, we weren't informed that it was going to be put out for proposal. That I can recall. Now I'm getting old, maybe I forgot, but you know, just like we just got done, and I know that Councilman Patton, he's on the street maintenance fee and looking at the street maintenance fee. A lot of it is just having the knowledge of before we find out behind the scenes that it went out to bid. And especially when I'm uncomfortable with the information I've been receiving back on how the bids were evaluated and who evaluated them. You know, and so that's why I really felt that a work session might be worthwhile before we actually, because we're not in a rush for this. I don't see a need for making a decision on this right away, because I really feel this is a critical in regards to city security and cybersecurity and everything else, and that we have more involvement with that.
And one thing I would just point out, so it's clear, I think, you know, this one has gone through the process, right? If there's been some miscommunication or some misunderstandings, you know, I think that's something to talk about. I would say that, you know, the way that staff looks at this, the way I would look at this is, you know, you've got a policy that was recently discussed, and again, I'm getting a little older too, and I don't remember exactly when that was, but the idea of keeping IT as a contracted service or having it in-house again. And the council's consensus was, let's do that as a contracted service. Usually that's sort of the tell in terms of, okay, it may not be explicit direction to staff, but the implication is, since we're going to be going out for it, then we've got to look to our contracting rules as to what procurement process to follow.
Right.
So with this one, I just be, wanting to caution the council about trying to sort of reel that in. That can create a set of problems that are sort of separate from, I guess, the concern, you've expressed about what the process is to start with.
Okay.
Anything additional? Councilor Patton, you have a comment?
Well, I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. The process that I remember was that there was a push to, there was a prioritization to determine whether it was more economical to have IT services in-house or contracted. And the council gave staff direction to research that. And part of the research was for them to go out with essentially an RFP to get those actual numbers. And because that's really the only way that you're going to get those numbers to determine whether it's cheaper or not. And so that at least in my opinion, that action was the council giving the go-ahead to start that process. And then at the previous meeting, there was a discussion as to whether, it was determined that there was not really any cost benefit one way or the other to have it in-house or not. And then there was essentially a consensus straw poll vote as to whether we wanted to, have staff continue forward with the process that was already started. And the answer was yes. So I guess to me, I assumed that was copacetic. That was the process. So I guess I'm confused as to why now there's questions as to how the process was followed. And I'm assuming that if there is a work session, that's one of the things that I just would want to make sure is covered is how was that process not the process, I guess? I don't know. That's my thought. That's my curiosity.
Thank you, sir. Jeff.
Well, I'm just speaking from how I processed this, and that was, I was told by the city administrator that she was doing this to get the price for the budget. And so then we got the cost for the budget, and the council at the last meeting decided we would contract this out. Then we found out it had already been contracted out, and I understand getting a cost of what it would be in regards to that amount. Okay, and so I appreciate that. We knew what that amount was for, but I was told it was for the budget, not to award a proposal. And then I asked for the scoring sheets on the proposals. And on the scoring sheets, I asked who evaluated them, and I was told I can't have that information in regards to who was scoring the proposals. And to me, that's public record, to be able to know who scored the proposals. And so that's why I'm saying I think that there's more information that I need in a work session to be able to support the recommendation.
Okay. So we have a request for a work session on this on the table, or at least an ask. What's the consensus of the council? I mean, is a work session necessary?
I wouldn't say it's not necessary. More information is always better, and if there's a request for more information, more discussion is always a good thing. I mean, this council likes to noodle things, so we have to have discussion to noodle. So I wouldn't be opposed to having a work session. It's probably a good idea.
I'd like the idea of a work session myself, too. Just, I'm starting doing the council, so I'm still learning things, and, I think Councilor Davis brings up some good points. And if nothing else, just to understand the process and what's kind of going behind people. One thing, and I don't know how to make it work better, but it'd be nice to have work session on a day where there wasn't a council meeting following or something, just because it seems like things are kind of rushed that way. But, especially if you want to discuss things, because a lot of times with the work session, my experience is the work session, the presentation's over, like 5 minutes before the next thing's going to start, and then like, okay.
No time for deliberation.
No time, and I like to talk it over, ask questions.
Okay.
Maybe, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, just want to clarify so I at least have some clarity, when we go forward. Is the idea to have a work session that talks about the process and have an understanding about that better, or is it to talk about the recommended award? Because you haven't awarded anything yet. There's going to be,
Right.
I think in the June meeting on the 5th, an agenda item that would relate to a recommendation to the council to award it to, I think it's Polar Systems was the highest ranked proposer. And so I just want to, is the council's goal to have a work session about how do we go about getting, people under contract to begin with, kind of the procurement process, or is it more about how do we end up at Polar Systems? Because I think those are two different discussions.
Well, I think you could accomplish the same in the same meeting, because you could use it as an example. For me, when you talk about the theory, a lot of times it kind of goes over your head and, out my ears. But if I'm talking about something that's before us, you can relate that to the actual process itself. So you kind of learn, I like to learn with concrete examples. It'd be a good opportunity to actually learn how the process works and go through this particular example as an example of how it works.
David, are you recommending that they're separate?
Well, it's mostly just to be sure that if there is going to be a work session that, we're getting you information that you want. I mean, I just wanted it to be clear that, just so there's no misunderstanding, that there has not been a contract. The city hasn't awarded a contract yet. What happened so far was basically saying, we've gone through the RFP process, there's been some scoring, and one proposer came out on top. And it's the intent to award a contract to that firm. But it really sets up, again, this is about the process, and this is something that I think, obviously, would be good for councilors to have a better idea. That allows people that weren't identified as that highest proposer to protest and say, hey, we think there's been a problem here. But then at that point, once that notice of intent, we think this is this was identified as the highest ranked proposer. At least in this case, given the dollar amount, that would, appear before you for your approval or rejection. And that piece about the approval or rejection is going to be happening on the 5th of June.
Or a later date.
So to Mr. Dufman's point, and for staff, is it a review of the process?
Just a review.
Okay. Scott, sorry, Councilor Sass, you have an opinion?
I've got an hour and a half. I'd like a little clarification. And I think that'll help us going forward with other stuff too.
Okay. Councilor Padden.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share my concern about the optics on this. The way that I see this going is, there are many proposals and things like this that the council has gone out for, or that the city has gone out for, and as long as I can remember, both on council and watching council meetings, it is rare, if ever, that the council gets involved in the minutia of a RFP like this. Especially before it comes before the council as a vote to be awarded, or the contract to be awarded or not. And the discussion as to whether to or not to move forward with it is usually done when that vote comes forward. I can tell you that I understand that this is a very hot topic, that there are council members that are very supportive of a particular company that bid out this project. And the thing that concerns me is that there was a general push to move this all forward. And based on what I saw in meetings and heard through conversation, that there was impression that a particular company was going to be awarded that contract. And now that it has been determined that that is not the case, all of a sudden we want to dig into this deeper. I think the optics are not good on this because, as Mr. Doofman said, where do we draw the line? If we open up this, if we dig into this, then who's to say we don't dig into, you know, how things were worked out for the turf, right? Because as Mr. Doofman has just said, you know, because that went through a special process, the contracts would normally be taken care of by now. But because we kind of went a different way with this, he's having trouble getting that information out of this company. It's similar to the athletic equipment area thing, the wall that had the different apparatus for physical exercise and stuff. You know, that was done a different way. And so I just think we need to be real careful as to how this is going, because if we set a precedent for council to dig into certain things, it runs the risk of showing bias towards a particular company. And I think that we need to be very careful about that. I'm not opposed to a work session. I will tell you right now that as I said, you know, at the last meeting, I'm fine with the process the city went through. And I want to get this in our rearview mirror because I think we have spent a ton of time on this and we have other things that we need to now pay attention to. And that, my opinion, will not change whether there's a work session or not. So have a work session, don't have a work session, makes no difference to me. That's the gist of it.
Okay, thank you. Based on kind of the consensus here, I'll work with Eileen and I will work on this on Tuesday when we get together and take a look at getting something pulled together for a review of the process. Eileen.
Council, I think I'm going to go back to what David was talking about in terms of the scope of this work session and the consequences of it. So I don't mind having a work session. I just want to make sure that we're covering the right information for you. So are we reviewing this RFP process, or are we reviewing the procurement process in general? Because there are many contracts that we contract with, and as far as I understand, the council has never taken such interest in the issue. So, you know, just looking at our janitorial contracts, for example, we just awarded that earlier this year. The council did not take interest in knowing who the proposers were and what the evaluation criteria was. And so I'm trying to kind of relate that example to this one and really understand what the difference is that causes the council to be interested in one service over another service.
It was how it happened and the lack of communications.
So then it's not a process issue.
No, it's just a better understanding of this proposal specifically.
Okay, so I'm just going to interject. I mean, Eileen and I have had a number of conversations, and I've seen the email threads back and forth with, they sent out the scoring card. I believe, saw that piece right there. So I guess I see where Eileen is at, where are we? I mean, it sounds like we're trying to dissect this particular one and not just the process in general.
I just think that the dollar amount on this and the importance of this particular item it warrants further discussion and understanding, because I really don't feel I have the questions answered yet that I've been trying to get.
Okay. I guess then, is it a matter of you emailing those questions to Eileen or meeting with the city manager to have, I mean, get?
Yeah, I've tried.
Okay, so it's not,
I see this as two things. Yes, we have questions that aren't answered. And I've mentioned this to Eileen in our meeting, that it kind of, this time it felt a little cart before the horse, not the normal procedure. So I think that already raised questions that we haven't had in the past. But we also have new counselors, so I think general procurement process is also a good education. So I think it's a two-piece situation for this particular work session. Answer some questions, put some minds at ease, and then also procurement process for counselors, the newer ones, to understand how this even works. So does that answer your question?
so then I'm going to be
How I
devil's
see it.
advocate, then we should undo the vote on the asphalt and paving project and we should revisit all those documents.
On the asphalt and paving project?
Yeah, that we just approved tonight.
We're going to fix the other half of that in the next meeting if we ever get there.
No, I'm talking, that's fine, but I'm talking about what we approved for tonight. I'm starting to get a little cranky.
I noticed.
I reviewed that scoring and felt comfortable with that scoring.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Patton.
So I will say this, if we want to dissect this and talk about the process, then we're going to go back and we're going to talk about the sludge removal, we're going to talk about the crack seal, we're going to talk about the turf, we're going to talk about the athletic thing, because those two things specifically were done in a way that the city normally doesn't do them. So if anything needs to be called out as something odd in the way the procurement process works, it's those ones. And we need to go back, the city staff needs to look back, at least for all of the decisions that were made in the last year, maybe 2 years, and see how those decisions and those processes stacked up to how this process was done. Again, I will say this again, I am not comfortable with the special interest that is being taken in this one proposal with what has been said and called out in previous meetings. And I think it would behoove the council to not just focus on this one thing if they want to have a discussion about this process, but look at all of those other things to make this all fair and equal for all of those other decisions. Because if we dig into this one, it is setting a precedent for other groups to dig into other things. And then how far back do you go? Do you go back to 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? You know, we have policies and procedures for this. This is not sitting well with me.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, nor with me. I think Todd covered off at the meeting where he did the presentation. To do the apples to apples calculations, he had to go out for an RFP to be able to do that, which is what he did. So we already had those numbers, we already had the RFPs. Why would we need to go out and do that again?
I'm not saying we have to go out and do it. I just have to understand the entire process that was used on this. Who scored the evaluation, you know? Because I was told that the evaluations couldn't be scored or department heads from Canby didn't feel comfortable scoring this process. And I felt uncomfortable with that, you know, in the fact that I think department heads are very capable of scoring this process, you know, and making an evaluation on this process.
Okay. And again, with all due respect, I believe that's your perception. I mean, if we had, I mean, our own current IT director bowed out because he felt that there was a conflict. That takes him out of that. The other people involved, if, as you're saying, we're trying to get, protect the information pieces of our city, I don't know if our department heads feel that they're not able to do that, then why do we not take that at value?
They felt uncomfortable being involved in the process. So they did not want to be involved in the process. All they want to do is make sure that their computer systems work correctly, but they did not want to be involved in evaluating the proposals.
Let me clarify that, just so you understand. IT is incredibly complicated. It's not a simple thing. There's a lot of things that I don't understand. I'm not an IT guy. I don't know anybody in the city, any director that has the knowledge and experience in IT to fairly and properly evaluate these things. Now, personally, I took myself out of the process because I have a bit of a bias towards one of the bidders. As far as the rest of the city goes, how many people know what a NAS is? How many people know the different storage solutions or servers? Or how many people know anything about security frameworks that can read an RFP and decide that this security framework is superior to this security framework? I don't know a single one of us. So I picked IT professionals because they do know these things. The other thing I want to bring up real quick before I go, I don't know where the idea got that we are doing well IT-wise. We are not. I have one person who's from Robert and Half, and he's a great guy. He's doing a great job, but he doesn't have the skills and the knowledge for our system right now. I have limited and minimal support from Kintech on our servers. I don't have proper IT support. I don't have proper server support right now. I mean, we had our Cassell server go down over the weekend. We couldn't get it back up till Monday because we didn't have proper support. So we don't have a lot of time to spend. I need to get somebody in to take this thing over because I'm not an IT professional. I have a degree in computer science. That's different. But I don't have that level of knowledge. Somebody has that level of knowledge, and it's not me. So.
Okay, Todd, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. So I guess maybe I'm going to make a suggestion. Like, so it sounds like there's a question, like, okay, so understanding the process of these types of contracts or procurement or setting up professional services. So great, we'll do a work session on that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what we've got is, and again, I'm throwing it out on the table, is what I see as a recommendation that is ready to be made by city staff on the process that was followed by our standards and by what is laid out, again, as Mr. Doofman laid out as well. So I still think we can, so fine, let's, I say continue to move forward with the IT piece. And then let's set up a work session after we get through budget pieces here the next month, because it's going to be very jam-packed city council meetings, to have a conversation about the process. So does that satisfy?
Sure, as long as, yeah. And so if we keep it on the agenda for the June 5th meeting, I will be asking those questions and I expect an answer on them.
Okay. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. I'm glad we got that worked out. Okay. Were there other items you had questions about? No? Okay. Counselor Stearns?
I haven't had an opportunity to go to my liaison meetings. I'd like to thank you, Todd, for your frank assessment of the IT situation. I've had a lot of experience with IT in software in the past, and that corresponded to what I thought, but I didn't want to say it because, of course, my knowledge level isn't the same as your day-to-day. So I think that I know that you have some objections, but I think right now we are basically, from my opinion, looks like we're almost naked, out there with IT as far as that goes. I just want to address a little bit about some of the comments from Christy Smith. I think she was upset that counselors, and I'm a counselor, didn't respond to her emails. And in general, if you want to talk to me, address the email to me, because anything that is addressed to the council as a whole, like, hi, all counselors, my thought process in the past is that goes to the mayor, because it's asking for a group. But if you say, hey, Dan, let's sit down, talk about it, then I would probably respond and arrange something with you in that way, just as a matter of communication. The only ones that address me personally seem to be the ones that want to sell the city something for some reason. And I don't feel comfortable representing the city for services that way as well. So just as a practical matter, if anybody's out there listening, it would have been nice to have the people stay for the whole meeting. But if they want, say, hey, I want to talk to you about this issue, then I would do that. But as far as the proclamation issue, I can either say yes or no. So for me, it's one of those things I don't worry about, because it's just not my thing to do. But I just thought if you wanted to talk to me, to, send the email address to Dan and say, hey, Dan, can we talk? Just as a silly follow-up, it did take about 2.5 weeks for my check that I delivered to the City of Canby to actually clear the bank. So I know I complained about it last time. I think it was, anyway, so I don't know. Well, I hand-delivered to the office and waited, I think, almost 3 weeks for the money to actually get out of my bank account.
Councilor Sassy.
I feel the same way, being new. I get Jim's point, but I've sat back there enough. We've went through stuff before, and we've never had to discuss this, and I know I'm new. I thought Todd did a great job explaining what he did the last meeting. I look to David. If Eileen's doing something wrong, he would have thrown up a red flag. He did not. So as council, we hired you as city administrator. Let her do her job, let the directors do their job, and let's go on from that. But like I say, IT stuff, I'm the least IT guy in this whole room by far.
Yeah, you still use a flip phone, right?
Well, no, I lost that. I had to get a new one. But that's where I wanted to stand there. If David would have thrown up a red flag, say, no, this doesn't seem right, then I get it. But he didn't. So Eileen, do your job, and we'll just keep asking questions. I guess that's all we can do. Anyway, okay, to Heritage and Landmark. So RLS is Reconnaissance Level Survey. Great reading material, pretty neat. They came back to our meeting for a second update. The final report will be done June 28th. They found in the last one, and this survey was done with a grant through the state Historic Preservation Office. They found that most of the homes developed in Canby were from 1941 through 1976, and they found 53 new resources. So, which included single-family homes, commercial buildings, Waite Park, and I thought this is really funny, the water tower on 4th. So I don't know how, just because it's old doesn't mean it's historic, but Carol Palmer came, and she has so much knowledge in this. She detailed the local register of historic places, and she's really trying to keep this heritage and landmark thing going. It's going to be tough because we're losing all the old people that know. Mm-hmm. So, but we did get 2 more applicants, Hannah and Rod, so thank you for that. And we decided to go to every other month for our meetings. So if you want to go to the next meeting, it's August 5th. And Tracy stole my baseball. That's my deal.
Oh,
But
sorry,
we are ranked
school,
number 2.
so-
And Friday is senior night for the seniors, our last home game, and then we go to the playoffs.
4:30.
4:30. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great.
I will not report
Thank you.
on baseball in my next school report. I apologize, Counselor Sassy.
City Administrator Business and Staff Reports.
Okay. Pressed it.
want a new one of these, new button. Counselors, there are bi-monthly reports in your packet. Hopefully you have read those. Just looking at one, this month, we do have vacancies on advisory boards again, so continue to shake the bushes on that. I would like you to, if you can, hold open June 12th. We might need a second meeting or a third meeting in June for the adoption of the budget. I'm not sure that we can, if we have a meeting on May 30th, I'm not sure that we can get all the changes on the proper forms and get it advertised in the budget in time for June, for the June 5th meeting. So we still have July or June 19th as a possibility, but if you wouldn't mind holding open that date of June 12th for a budget meeting. Went to a Kiwanis presentation on Monday, talked about what's going on in the city and specific needs of the children and the community they were interested in hearing about. So it was nice to get to know our Kiwanis. There was a meeting this past week on Cogeo. They gave us a status report where they're at on that project, so that was good to know, and more to come on that. There is, I sent you earlier today an invitation to a public contracting 201 workshop that David's firm is putting on. So if you want to, some of the department directors, I'm going to participate in that. Some of the department directors are as well, but that's another place that you can come and get information on what all these procurement policies that we've been discussing tonight entail. And then there is a Bridging Cultures Luncheon on, so that public contracting webinar is on May 29th at 1:30. There is a Bridging Cultures Luncheon on this Saturday at 11:30. And I did attend, or I did put on the budget committee training last night and gave you a copy of that PowerPoint. So that's my report.
Thank you, Eileen, appreciate it. Two questions for you. 99E project, they're redoing all the ADA ramps. Again, part of the have to do. Do we have a plan or a timeline on the ones that we will need to do in downtown?
Everybody looks behind.
There's no one behind you, Spencer, so I hope you have an answer. Yeah, I mean, David might have that answer.
So can you rephrase the question?
Sure.
What exactly are you looking for?
So my question is, so we're required to redo the ADA ramps in our city, and they're currently being done along 99. So my question is at some point, I believe we are going to have to do all the ADA ramps in our downtown core, correct?
If you just say now that it says it that way.
Okay.
So right now, what we currently do is anywhere where we are doing any pavement restoration, any of those areas do get new ADA ramps. So this year, I believe we're doing 22 new ADA ramps spread out between all of the places that are getting new asphalt. So as far as the whole downtown.
The last that's left to do in like our downtown area is the 2nd Street, 1st Street, and on that, we want to finish that all the way down to Elm Street.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did a large portion with the CDBG grant over in the area, kind of over by the Methodist, or the old white church on 3rd Avenue. And so every street that gets paved now is required to have upgrades to it. And so we were actually ahead of the curve on ODOT and everyone. So everything that we've done since basically, I don't know, we'll have to ask Councilor Padden, but they started requiring that in like 2010. So we've been upgrading our ramps since then.
Oh, so it sounds like to me that if they'll get updated as we go through and
Absolutely.
do paving around those particular ADA ramps.
Any new paving gets it, even like slurry seal could trigger it, just so you know. I just wanted to
My
bring
new
that up.
favorite slur.
It does.
I'm gonna have slurry seal nightmares tonight, Jerry. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. That answers that question. Thank you. Eileen, my other question, I believe we have some interest from a hotel group, and are we close to having that executive conversation?
We are close.
Okay, do we have we're close.
In June.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's what I want to know. All
That's
right, that is close.
Yes.
Okay, that's all that I had to ask, so perfect, thank you. Item 10 on here, second opportunity for citizen input. And I have a card here from Ms. Tate. I'd like to come up and address the council. Good evening, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted an opportunity to apologize for earlier this evening. I don't know how many of you know Dan Tews. If you don't know Dan Tews, you should Google him. It's important to know who he is and who he represents. I've known Danny since I was 14. I'm 60. We've had a long history. I feel like the LGBTQ community came here tonight with their heart on their sleeve. They're very sweet people, and they didn't deserve what happened out front. They were harassed all the way to their cars, called foul names, slurs. David intervened and said, no violence, give him safe passage. And Danny said, I'll give it to them, but I'm not giving it to you. And I know what that means. At some point, they're going to have to come together and figure that out. But David got them out of here tonight. When I came in here, I was scared and I was looking for leadership. Like, do we have police here tonight? What do we have? Like, I didn't know how to protect them. And I knew that they were not going to be protected once they got out those doors. So I just wanted to apologize and tell you what happened and explain all of it.
And I appreciate that, Linda. And again, being here, not fully being aware of the situation, and tonight I didn't anticipate that I would need to have the presence of the
Right.
PD here, as this has not been our first, rodeo on this particular topic. And so
Right.
it sounds like we had a call made and our guys responded, so.
Yeah, but I was thankful. They didn't get here until it was almost over with, which is fine, but
Sure.
they did show, and I'm really thankful for that. I think that moving forward, it's, Dan lives in Oregon City. He doesn't live in Canby, but now
Right.
that he's here, he and his ilk are going to be here.
Okay.
So it's important to know that moving forward. And I would definitely, again, strongly recommend you Google him.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thanks.
Action review.
You have approved the consent agenda. You have adopted ordinance 1620. You have approved ordinance 1621 to a second reading on June 5th, 2024. You have approved ordinance 1622 to a second reading on June 5th, 2024. You have approved resolution 1405. You have approved resolution 1406, and you have approved staff to move forward with an RFP for the city attorney contract.
A full evening. Thank you very much. Before we adjourn, I will say, please stay tuned because we have an urban renewal district meeting after this. So get comfortable if you're staying. So now that I've dropped that news on everyone, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn our regular city council meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We are adjourned. Cammy, thank you. We'll start our urban renewal agency meeting here shortly. Have a great night.
Welcome back, Canby. This is the urban renewal portion of the evening. We'll call to order. We will forego the pleasantries of the pledge and all that because we did it at the council meeting. First thing on the agenda is citizen input and community announcements. I don't see any yellow cards. We don't have anybody online, so nothing for urban renewal comment. I will take a motion for the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the minutes for the May 1st, 2024 Urban Renewal Agency meeting.
Anyone?
Thank you, Jason.
It's been moved by Vice Chair Hodson and seconded by Commissioner Patton to approve the consent agenda that includes the minutes of the May 1st, 2024 Urban Renewal Agency meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is consideration of resolution number 24001. And we have Jerry Nelsing as the contact on the agenda, unless, Eileen, are you presenting this?
Yeah, I will. I will
Okay,
go
good.
ahead and present this. So, as you know, Commission, the council just approved the contract for the paving, the street maintenance and alleyway paving project. What this resolution does is it puts in place the mechanism by which the Urban Renewal Agency will reimburse or will pay for its portion of the improvements. So the bid scheduled there were 3 schedules of work. There was Schedule A, Schedule B, and Schedule C. Schedule C is the alleyway improvements. And so what will be happening by adoption of this resolution is that you are saying, Commission, that you approve of Schedule C being paid for from urban renewal, but the city will be reimbursed. So that's what that resolution does.
Makes sense. Commissioners, any questions on this item? Commissioner Davis. Pardon?
I was gonna make the motion, but
Okay,
if there's some questions, that's fine.
We do have a question first. Commissioner Davis.
Okay, way back when the Urban Renewal Agency Chair sent a letter to the mayor requesting reimbursement from the city, it seems to be for a project. And I don't think that we've resolved that issue in regards to the reimbursement from the city back to the Urban Renewal District. So I just wonder where that's at.
That's next on the agenda under old business.
That's for the community park. Yeah, that's down the agenda ways.
Right.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, anything else on the alleyway project? Okay, I'll accept a motion.
Chair Hensley,
Commissioner
I move to consider resolution number 24-001, a resolution of the City Urban Renewal Agency Board to reimburse the City of Canby $371,734 for downtown alleyway improvements in the URA district.
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Patton, seconded by Vice Chair Hodson to adopt Resolution 24001, a resolution of the Canby Urban Renewal Agency Board to reimburse the City of Canby for $371,735 for downtown alleyway improvements in the URA district. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes 6-0. Okay, old business. Eileen, would you please present the community park overage?
Yes, I will. So, council, this has been going on for a long time. This came up recently in the Urban Renewal Board when there was a resolution adopting a supplemental budget. And if the decision is made tonight to fund the community park overage with Urban Renewal Agency dollars, then we will need to do a supplemental budget before the end of the year. But the issue is that you may recall, some of you may recall, this came up last year at budget time. And there was a desire, the council learned that, or the commission learned that there was an overage of about $350,000 on this park project, on the community park project. And the request was made by the chair at the time to submit a letter to the mayor requesting that the city's general fund pay for the overage. I think the thought at the time was that the overage would be paid for through SDCs. I have since determined, or have since been told, I think, Jerry, was it by you or was it by Kurt?
Both
that,
of us.
Yeah, that the project is not eligible for SDC funding. And so it is not on the project list that was adopted for the SDC at the time. So that leaves the general fund reserve. The good news is the Urban Renewal Agency reserve and the general fund reserve have the money to pay for the overage. The question is, what source do you want to pay for the overage with?
Okay. Vice Chair Hudson.
So I know we're dealing with item A, but if our decision on item A is item A will impact item B under old business, depending on what decision we make. Yes or no?
Yes, it will,
Okay.
to a degree.
So we can't use STCs. So it either comes from general fund or we pull it from urban renewal.
That's correct.
So if we pull it from urban renewal, then the bridge is off the table.
I don't know about that yet. I need to look into that more. Jerry did receive, let's just kind of merge these two items together. Jerry, yeah, if you would, because you did ask for an assessment of painting the bridge, and Jerry just got the numbers today, so.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thanks, commissioners. So reading the minutes from the last urban renewal meeting, the original price that I got back May 5th of 2022 was $1.4 million to paint the whole bridge. I didn't revisit that painting the whole bridge. We can all just guess it's going to go up, just how much. I can get a price on that, but what I read in there is that we wanted to look at getting rid of the rust spots. Just get rid of the rust and leave the rest of the bridge so it keeps it structurally sound and all that. So the prices I got were just rough before we go waste a bunch of money on engineering and stuff to see if you guys want to do it. And basically, it's $172,000 to get rid of all the rust spots on both sides of the bridge.
And so when you say get rid of the rust spots, define that for me.
Like sand them down, get rid of all the paint underneath that, get rid of the rust, and then repaint the rusty spots. And basically how they chopped this up, he looked at it, and what it is it's traffic control is the expense, because they got to do a lane at a time. And so they broke down that, and they did it by, but that's a safe number. It's a lot of money, but it's a safe number. I don't want to go over on anything, but that's what he said he could do it for. That's no engineers involved, that's no nothing. I called the people that do the painting directly, and that's what they said that their price would be, so.
And that includes the traffic control, the
Everything,
scaffolding, and all of
all
that.
the bells and whistles, yep.
So we sand the spots off.
Yes.
We're going to repaint those spots.
Yes.
And presumably, as I'm sure as amazing as they are in terms of matching the paint.
We all know.
It's going to look like.
It'll be polka dotted.
Off-colored green circles on the bridge.
Like when they graffiti it and we paint it back, you can tell where the graffiti is.
Right.
It's just, there's no way around that. It's faded, trying to match faded, green, ugly paint.
But we paint dahlias over the spots. I'm
You
just
know,
kidding.
and
I'm just kidding.
That was an idea.
That was an idea.
yeah, it was, and I think what you guys brought up was more like, we don't have a lot of money, let's just keep the thing from rusting so that we can't use it at all, or it turns into a major expense down the road. And so,
To restore it, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So what you did have, you did hear a report that this year, we budgeted 585 for the alleyways. And so that's only going to cost 371,000, so there's some savings there. And then the bridge, you budgeted 561,000 for the bridge. That really, at that point in time, was Eric's kind of where he put all of the extra money that, that was left over from figuring out what the project balance was at that point in time. He put all the money in that bridge project, and it came out to 561,900 or something like that. So if we're going to just paint the spots, the rest spots, clearly we have enough money in the Urban Renewal Agency budget to do that project as well. We still have some money left over to do projects, additional projects with. So we might be able to do more than just paint the rust spots. But I just don't have those figures in my mind tonight. And we are going to review the Urban Renewal Agency budget on May 23rd as the Budget Committee. So we could come back at that point and have this all figured out for you.
Okay. I know that you said that we can't use SDCs, but I also recall asking the question if a portion of the project could have been paid with SDCs, because we did add a restroom, which would be adding capacity.
Yeah.
So even if it's just a little bit,
That's the
my mom
question.
budget brain says take every little bit, and every little
Sure.
bit helps.
Yeah.
So can we not use any portion of SDCs for any portion of the project at all?
Let me clarify that for you.
Please.
So we could use SDCs for community park if we did a community park master plan. It's individual, like we're going to do for Wake Park, what we're putting in the budget for that. So it would have to be specific for that. And we could use the money now. We would just have to have that master plan done and adopted by January 1. So I don't want to say no, but it's possible. But man, we got a lot of work to do, and to try to hit that deadline, Counselor or Commissioner Hensley, would be, I don't know if we could do it.
What would be the
And-
dollar amount of SDCs that we could use if we did that process?
It would tell us, because right now the park's basically by the master plan, it's saying it's built out, you know what I mean? We had a bathroom already, we added, and we added another one, we added parking, but it didn't really call for that. This was something that we knew we needed, but it wasn't something we addressed in the original master plan. So,
Okay.
so we'd have to find some money, get a consultant in, go through that whole process, get them in, get them to do a master plan. We know
So
how long it
ultimately-
takes. We've been working on Maple for almost 2 years.
Right. And ultimately, we could end up paying more in consultants than we would save in SDCs.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
sorry, we really dug into that to look into it.
No, and I appreciate their time on that.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Patton, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I guess, for painting the spots, does this also include any other, like rust under the bridge? Any rust in general other than just the spots?
Commissioner Patton, talking to this group and not, knowing exactly what we want to do, basically what they're going to roll in and do everything they can get to. They said that's like, I forget how many days they said, that was 200 man hours, and they would hit everything they could hit while they're there. You know what I mean? They would just close the lane, they would get all of that. So yes, if they could get it all there, he felt comfortable for this price, he could hit all the rust on it, on the bridge. So to answer the
Okay,
question,
then-
yes. Let me just say
That
this.
would be my concern, is painting the rust spots that are cosmetic is all well and good. But if there's rust in the support areas and stuff, I would prefer that get addressed, because that would really, degrade the structural integrity of of the bridge itself. So if it covers it, great. I would just love to prioritize true structural improvements over cosmetic improvements if we're putting any painting towards this project at all.
Yeah, it's tough. This is a tough one. We did an RFP back in, Jamie and I worked on it back in early 2022, got a consultant. He's been kind of just hanging, and it's HHPR. It's a different group in there. And they keep calling, are we going to do anything, and so some clear direction on that would be helpful, and I could get more accurate, closer prices and even like structural stuff and all that. I just don't want to waste any of your guys' money on stuff if it's not what the direction we want to go, and we don't have the budget to do it. So that's why I'm excited to be here tonight to talk about this, get the rust prices, throw these numbers at you. And I got quite a bit of numbers if you guys need them tonight. But
Comments, questions? Commissioner Davis.
How much do we actually have that we can spend this budget fiscal year and next out of urban renewal? What's our balance? Because I go to the actual projects that we already identified that we wanted to do, the Second Street sidewalks over by the VFW. We identified that. We identified the alleyways, which we're doing.
Yep.
And so this next one, like the mayor said, if we take money out of urban renewal, what goes away?
Yeah.
Because I guess we need to know the balance that we have to spend. We could authorize all kinds of money, but if the money's not there to spend.
I would prefer to take some time to figure out what the current number is rather than tell you tonight.
Yeah, so we really don't know how much we can authorize to spend if we don't know how much we have to spend.
Go ahead.
And part of that relates back to what is the decision with regard to the community park overage?
Yeah.
Well, like you said, these kind of go hand in hand. Commissioner Patton.
Yeah, I guess for me, this is my thought on this. I guess what I would love to see sooner than later is, this, so we've gotten, how do I want to say this? How do I want to dissect this? We have had several meetings now where we've been told how much money is available, what projects we can do, then there's discussion on whether we should or shouldn't do these projects. Then we wait a while and projects fall off the plate, and then we come back again. I guess for me, and every time city staff is putting time and money into these non-decisions, I guess for me, I would advocate for having city staff put together a plan to say, again, this is how much money we have over the next, because I believe it's only like 2 years worth of money left in the district. If community park if the overage for community park is funded, you would have money the alleyways have been taken out, and then you would be able to cover the sidewalks, this, and then show that diminishing amount of money. And then prioritize to say, let's do these things. If painting just the rust spots on the bridge is one thing, and then, painting the rust spots, but also doing some sort of, beautification through decals or something like that, if those are some options, give the council another, menu of options. Or not the council, but the commission, give the commission another menu of options, and then we need to make a decision, and we need to move forward that decision and get it done, rather than going back and forth. So, I'm happy to direct staff on doing this, but we need to make some actual decisions on what we're gonna do.
I would agree. Commissioner, or Vice Chair Hassett.
Yeah, I would concur. I think if, again, we're looking at, if we rob Peter, we're going to take away from Paul as well. And so I would like to know if because the option of pulling it out of the general fund, it's what fund is that would the funds come out of, is what I'd want to know. And if it's bringing that fund balance down, I'd like to know what percentage that leaves us at. Because I'm kind of inclined to say, let's take care of Community Park out of the general fund aspect and then do the painting and sandblasting out of urban renewal and be done with it.
I think the idea of a menu of options, all the scenarios, and then presented to us, then we actually make a decision and take action on it in that meeting. Thoughts, Commissioner Davis?
That's fine. I kind of agree with the mayor.
Yeah, okay. Jerry?
I don't know if I should say this, but I'm going to just say it anyways. So I like those ideas, but I think you're going to take a big hit on this bridge thing. I think we are by
bigger than what?
Just comment, public, why don't we do it right and all that. I think the bridge is a separate. I know Eileen's passionate about it. She wants to get it done. We can't afford to paint it. The bridge, in my opinion, something needs to be done with it, and it needs to be addressed, and we need to look into it. And Eileen and I have even had conversations. We've had them with Bike and Ped and everyone else, like looking at it. Could it be more of a transportation thing and get it out of the park scenario, and figure out, because we do use it for transportation, but we haven't had time to look into that. And that's an avenue to go and do the bridge right. It doesn't, whether it's pretty or not, it needs to be maintained. That's the one thing, whether we take political hits or not. We're getting down to the wire, and it takes so long to get everything through the process that we can bring this stuff back to you. I'm glad to do that. We can get you prices on all this, but kind of if you ask me my opinion, what I would like to do, and I'm going to throw it out there, is we're $213,265 under budget on alleys out of the urban renewal. So we have that extra money, right? So think about that. And I've always wanted to finish First Street, and I know it's second on our priority. And don't we have to have these done in this next budget cycle? We have to have it in
25, 26. We're closing.
So, yeah, what I'm wondering is, why don't we make it easy on ourselves and make this achievable and make it some good projects so we're not spinning our wheels, and give us direction to maybe, let's finish the alleys. Let's look into being under budget on the alleys and maybe paying a little bit more on Community Park maybe or something. Think about it, bring those prices back so that we're not, or if the general fund can add it, and then focus on First Street in front of the Legion where those people keep tripping and stuff like that, and finish the downtown parking where we have our street dance and events and stuff like that, and stay under budget on anything. I don't know, those are projects that I could manage, in-house, and they're achievable. The bridge is a monster to take on. It just is. And we put our community through a lot with 99E being closed, and then to roll into more traffic control and all that. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there for you guys to think about it. But to me, First Street repairs, I can do easy. We can get that out, we can get that done. The alleys are already done. I don't know, just throwing that out there for what you guys think, and then close this thing down. Because we're at the end. We all knew this was going to be hard. You got money left. We all want to spend it. We know that, but we don't want to go over, and we don't want to make it hard on our finance people. I don't know, would that be easier just to set a couple things that we like all as a group, as a project, have Eileen and I get prices, bring them back to you and see what you think on those, on some
And those are some
achievable?
good ideas, which, yeah.
We
you
could
work
achieve
with-
those.
Yeah, that's what I think we're kind of talking about, is that menu of
Yeah,
options.
the
What can be done? Give us scenarios. We could do this, or this.
Yeah, and then talk about the bridge
You know, the meal deal or the à la carte, whatever, you know, give us a menu.
I don't know, we always seem to kind of do stuff right here in Canby. We just don't, you know what I mean? It always takes us a lot of work to get there, but we always end up getting there. And I think this group can put their heads together and figure out, and Eileen wants to do the bridge. I mean,
I want to do the bridge.
You want to do the bridge, and,
Yeah, I
but
mean, I think we all.
I want to
throwing
figure
some
out how
urban
to
nobody at it,
deliver the
but
bridge
do
for
some
you.
SWAT. I don't know, you guys tell me what you think. I'll do whatever. I'm not trying to be insubordinate here or anything like that, but just as far as what my team can do and everything else, these are projects that we would love to do.
How dare you give us your opinion, Jerry?
No, I'm sorry.
No, I think we all wanna
normally
do the
don't do
bridge,
that,
but we're-
but, you know,
we need to
we want to focus on the stuff we got to get done, the Walnut Street construction. We got these parks projects that are so important and stuff. So that's kind of my recommendation, and I don't know what you think about that, Eileen, of just focusing on a couple and then closing it up and moving on. I don't know.
Well, present us the menu of options.
Okay.
Commissioner Patton, I see your hand up
Yeah,
there.
so-
You've had it up for a
Yeah,
long
so
time,
I-
I saw it.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So for some reason, my phone doesn't allow me to raise my hand when I'm in a Zoom call because it's dumb. But anyways, I guess for me, and I appreciate your comments, Jerry, and I
Yeah.
completely agree. What I would like to see is if there's any way to use funds from urban renewal to at least patch the structural concerns to eke the bridge's life out a few more years, and then either probably as a city councilor, when the city council hat is on, is to direct the city to come up with a master plan for how we're gonna deal with the bridge. You know, make a decision on what we want that bridge to look like, and then make a plan for, X number of years, because we know that we really can't do it all in one shot. But say, these are the things we want, we can feasibly do these items over the course of X period of time, and then budget those out, so that over the course of 5 or 6 years, and, like it or not, I always refer to 5 or 6 years, because it's palatable. By the end of that time, the bridge is in great shape. So I agree with you that we should come up with some sort of master plan for that project. But if there's any way to save the bridge and get its life expectancy through that sort of process, I would prefer to do that, even if it's, $200,000. So that's my thoughts on that.
Okay. Any other thoughts, commissioners? Jerry, Eileen, do you have what you need from us as far as direction? Yes, Jerry.
So what I'm taking from this, we'll go back, see how much money we got for this year till it closes, and come back with a recommendation,
Yeah.
or some options, I guess, not a
Yeah,
recommendation, but some options for you
some
guys to
options
choose.
for us to choose from. Yeah.
Uh,
And then we'll actually,
And we got the bridge price, so we know that. We got, okay.
okay. And then we need to be prepared to make some decisions next time. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay. And that brings us to the end of the agenda for the evening.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, wow. It's been motion made by Vice Chair Hodson. I'll give the second to Commissioner Stearns, because he was louder. And it's a non-debated motion. This meeting's adjourned. Good night, Canby.
Good night.